And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the UK sim racing community's Porsche Cup Season 5, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks rounds 7 and 8 out of our 18-round calendar, and with it our 4th venue. And we've moved from France as of last week to Germany, neighbouring Germany, for the Hockenheimring Grand Prix circuit. Located in the state of Baden-Württemberg, this is a circuit that in its 90-year history, having opened in 1932, has evolved considerably and gone through 2 major redesigns. Once the charge into the local Hockenheim forest, as you can see in the background there on our pictures, it is now a circuit that follows a standard Hermann Tilke design template, and perhaps a bit controversial for that, given the fact that many would say that has essentially been coming off the printing press from Hermann Tilke himself. But still, this circuit is highly twisty, technical and tight, and what that means is that track position is going to be key here as our drivers make the way around and thunder around with 510 horsepower at their fingertips in their Porsche 992 Cup cars. Of course, this is also the local centre for the Porsche Experience Centre in Germany, and therefore you could say that our drivers are racing on a bit of home soil for the Porsche 992 Cup car. But the question is, who will be able to pull off the stellar results tonight, keep clear of the field and hold on to track position all the way to the checkered flag? We'll find that out over the course of 2 races. But as we get ready to go, of course, you're tuning in live via the official UKSimRacing YouTube channel. Welcome to you if you are tuning in. Don't be shy, feel free to say hi in the YouTube chat there. We can see the chat. And in the commentary booth, as always, you have myself. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action over the entirety of this season. But speaking of the season, as we look to our season calendar, we can see the story continues to unfold with the first 3 venues now complete, and well, let's regale you with the tale. We started back in the United Kingdom in what was the 5th of January of 2023, with rounds 1 or 2 taking place at Alton Park. There we saw at the British circuit, a very tight circuit and quite similar to where we'll be racing today in terms of the complexes of corners, albeit the difference is plenty of undulations at Alton Park. We're not going to be seeing too many elevation changes here in Germany. And Alton Park, there were definitely a number of drivers who really found themselves up against it when it came to close battling. And whereas at the very front of the gold class and the mid-pack of the silver class, everybody did seem to really get their teeth into the fighting, and that continued all the way over to the South American continent, and in particular the Interlagos circuit in Brazil on the 12th of January. With that, in rounds 3 and 4, we saw our drivers continue the action, and indeed quite a few incidents, particularly at the start of our sprint race, where a number of drivers they succumbed, we should say, to what was a major incident off the start line, and many a gold driver losing out, but many a silver driver capitalising, and some gold drivers who perhaps didn't expect to be up on the podium find themselves there in the foray. And then after coming away from Brazil, we made our way to France on the magnified circuit, and there we saw at the recently introduced French circuit on iRacing that rounds 5 and 6 were full of action, indeed plenty of drama. And well, who can forget what happened in the sprint race and the run down towards the turn 4 hairpin, and also what happened at the start of the feature race, where we saw many of our gold drivers make the way off circuit into turn number 1. Indeed, a multi-car collision, but perhaps the biggest highlight of them all in France was Roxanne Marshall taking her first 2 wins of the series, competing in the Porsche Cup for a long time, picking up her first 2 wins in the silver class, and as a result that has really evolved the silver class tables we'll come to shortly. But today we're in Germany, of course, on the 26th of January, and after today we'll be making our way over to Norway for the Rudskogen Motor Centre circuit, and heading through the local Norwegian forestry, if you will, in rounds 9 and 10. That'll be the halfway point of the season. And well, if we talk about this circuit today, the Hockenheimring being highly technical and tight, well, Rudskogen takes it one step further. Well, qualifying will be the most important factor to success at Rudskogen, given the fact the circuit there does not offer that many overtaking opportunities unless you're brave, bold and willing to give it all under braking. But after rounds 9 and 10, we'll be making our way stateside to the United States of America for the city of Detroit for the Belle Isle Street Circuit, and our drivers will be taking on the circuit that is a classic when it comes to racing around the streets of a given city. And then the Belle Isle Detroit Grand Prix in the state of Michigan, we've seen our drivers take one another on in what will be a very tight and close quarters fight up and down the circuit. But you can imagine there in rounds 11 and 12, they'll be looking to start to get those major points on the table because rounds are running out. That'll be on the 9th of February, and then a week later we stay in the United States, but make our way over to the state of Wisconsin for Road America in rounds 13 and 14. And there we'll see a very different circuit, very open, not a street circuit, but in the local countryside with road racing at its core. And there were wide expanse of corners, indeed a wide number of straightaways. You can imagine all of our drivers there will be looking to use the slipstream and be brave on the brakes in order to get the moves done and set themselves up for success on the 16th of February. And then for our penultimate 2 rounds, our penultimate venue will be heading to Spain at the Circuit of Barcelona, Catalonia, and then on the Grand Prix circuit on the 23rd of February. We've seen our drivers have to take on a circuit that's tricky to overtake at, but of course with these cars, these Porsche Cup cars, it's just about as much being able to carry the speed and the consistency as it is about being close enough to pick up the draft on the straight, and also a number of chicanes set and some very off-camber corners. Our drivers may find themselves finding an opportunity, alternatively making their way into gravel, one of the two, and then we bring it all to a close on the 2nd of March in round 17 and 18 at the Sebring circuit, and there on the venerable old runways, if you will, of the United States of America, we'll bring the curtain down and see who our champions are in the gold and silver and teams championship classes. Now, speaking about our classes, of course, we start taking a look at our championship standings, and we look to our gold drivers championship. And after 6 of 18 rounds, it is Tim Darracott who continues to lead the way, having opened up his advantage now to 8 points. It's a slight advantage, but the Effect eSports driver will take every advantage he can get, given how close the field has been in the gold class so far. And the Effect eSports driver there, 8 points clear at WS Racing eSports, is Marcel Fritsch. But the big name, of course, that everybody raised an eyebrow at and looked at the spotlight of last time out, of course, was debutant there in P5 of Philipp Hammer for WS Racing eSports, absolutely blitzing his way through the competition, out-qualifying the field by a sizable margin, excess of half a second. And never looking back from the start of the racing, picking up the win in the sprint and also the win in the feature. And can you imagine if Philipp Hammer was able to do it again today, make it a perfect score once more and double his total 38 points to what would be 76? Well, he would be right on course to jump ahead of the likes of Marcel Fritsch and also potentially get himself level with Tim Darracott, depending on how the results go for his rivals. But in between him and P5 and our top two, we have Lee Holmes there for 88 Racing Team at purple, also on 51 points, but behind the WS Racing eSports driver Fritsch based on result countback. And we also have Emil Koopmans there for Apex Missers on 44 points, and having a bit of bad luck last time in France and looking to turn that around. Then it's Joe Newman in P6 for simracing on 38 points, behind Philipp Hammer based on result countback. Simon Bamber the privateer there on 32 points in P7, only 2 clear of Karen Willesey for Willesey Racing. He'll be using tonight as his drop round, we've been informed, so you won't be seeing the leading Willesey Racing driver there taking to the circuit. And then we have Nathan Foster from Simon Racing and Danny Hugendorn completing the top 10. Now, the Apex Business driver having a great time in Brazil, of course, but not a stronger performance last time out in France. And can he make a better performance today in Germany? That's what we'll be waiting to see. And he is ahead of Corey Lazarus from Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, who unfortunately won't be seen tonight in practice for the next few rounds, given the fact he is experiencing some technical issues at the moment with his sim racing hardware. But we do hope to see the New Zealander coming back strong in the near future, because of course it's not the same. We don't have both of the Blackout Motorsport New Zealand drivers taken to the tarmac, but in his absence we'll still continue to see Samuel K. Sproul there taking on the tarmac for the team on 20 points currently and looking to try and fight his way into the top 10. Then my Satellite Racing's Ryan Walker on 15 points ahead of Dan Blackwell from Simran Racing Academy, and then Steve Hughes, the privateer, ahead of Andy Jones to complete our gold standings. And as we come onto our silver class standings, well, how a week can make a difference. Remember, we said that Roxanne Marshall picking up her first 2 wins in the series. Well, those 2 wins have jumped all the way up to the top of the standings on 77 points. And you may be thinking at this point, okay, well, what's going to be the story going into tonight? Well, the story is, can Roxanne Marshall, if not pick up another win, at least hold on to that lead, given the fact the leaders exchange hands every pair of rounds so far. And Ash England, of course, is second place and looking to try and hunt down Marshall on 64 points. There's a 13-point delta, and the Willesey Racing driver there looking to really a certain advantage. But he's got company in the form of Shane Piggott there for ATX Racing Team Red, and also Jack Ward for Willesey Racing. And you can imagine there, those 3 drivers separated by only 8 points, all looking to try and take points off of one another and also off the championship leader. James Kersott, the privateer there in P5 on 42 points, perhaps the unluckiest driver in the silver class this season so far, and demonstrated a huge amount of pace, indeed top 3 pace in the silver class, but for every time he's able to demonstrate it, some bad luck seems to follow him and he ends up falling off track. But will Kersott be able to prevent the run of bad luck from continuing and bring himself a great result? He's bound for a great result, we're expecting it to come, but will it be tonight? With his 10 points clear of Humberstone there for ATX Racing Team Purple, who's only 1 point clear of his Cyan rival for Craig Schill, and then we do have his fellow Cyan driver there of Alistair Hatcher in P8, and well, they're separated by 6 points. Ross McFarlane in P9 there, the privateer on 24 points, only ahead of Matt Maddox based on result countback from BDM Racing, and outside the top 10 there, best of the rest is Ashley Coverdale for Simran Racing Academy on 14 points, and yet to score points, Nathan Scott, Daz Fellows and Darren Eels there, and the ATX Racing Team at Red driver unable to score those points so far, but could he score some tonight if he is in attendance? We'll have to wait and find out. Now, coming on to our team's standings, we can see that WS Racing eSports leading the way, of course, buffeted by the performances of Fritsch earlier on in the season, and also the performances of Hammer last time out, and they lead the way now by a margin of 18 points over Apex Missers. But Apex Missers being closely chased there by Simran Racing, only 4 points behind, and then a further 6 points behind is Effect eSports, and these 3 teams all competing really to be the ones to take the fight to WS Racing eSports. We then have ATX Racing Team Purple not far off the chase either, with Willesey Racing outside the top 5 in P6, and they're clear by 15 points points over Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, who have got double the points of 24-hour Punty people. Satellite Racing and Simracing Racing Academy complete the top 10. Simracing Racing Academy only ahead of 88 Racing Team Red based on result countback, and they're the best of the rest, but they do have Team Cyan just behind them by a single point, and it's BDM Racing and DCW Racing who complete our team standings after 6 of 18 rounds. But coming from our standings then, onto our circuit for today. Well, it's none other than the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg Grand Prix circuit. Now, as we mentioned earlier, this circuit designed by Hermann Tilke. It is a circuit that follows the standard template, if you will, and as you can see from the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com, thank you, of course, to iRacing for the brilliant simulator and also these circuit maps, which we do enjoy to analyse. This circuit does have some major constituents, and it's also separated into two major halves. The first half, as you may have already gathered, is quite straight orientated and also heavy braking zone orientated, because our drivers make the way across the start-finish line and in towards turn number 1. They'll go into the right hand of the fast right and Nord curve there, where we drop a gear, chuck the car in and avoid the sausage curve on the apex and keep it within the exit curve, otherwise they'll be considered to be off track and they'll be impeded for it. And as they make the way down from turn 1 towards turn number 2, into the invert parabolica hairpin, they'll go heavy on the brakes there and rolling the car on through to one of the slowest corners on the circuit. They'll then come through the kinks of 3 and 4 and then power the way flat out down the parabolica straight or head into the braking zone for Spitzakera hairpin. The slowest corner on the circuit, turn number 6, and this is where we expect to see most of the battle in action into turn 6, the classic style battle in action, if you will. And as our drivers head through the turn 6 hairpin, they'll be getting their elbows out, of course, to try and make sure other drivers can't get around them or up the inside of them. And as they exit out, now the circuit starts to take a bit of a paradigm shift. As they make the way on the short straight into turn number 7, it's a fast right kink before they break the way into the Mercedes arena, and at turn number 8 they go through the fast left-hander, albeit they'll come through the right angled left-hand, if you will, and then make the way through the kinks of 9 and 10 before flying onto a shorter straight. That short straight proceeds the run into the stadium section, starts off the Mobile 1 curve, and as they head into turn number 11 there, it's all about breaking down a couple of gears and making the way on in and carrying as much speed as possible, but keeping it on the tarmac because the exit curve there is quite treacherous, as we'll go on to see. Surviving that, they'll make their way into turn number 12. Of course, the corner that is most known perhaps for Sebastian Vettel's moment in the rain a few years ago in Formula 1, but it's also a circuit that can catch many a driver out, being a very heavily cambered corner, and as our drivers try to dig their teeth into the lower portion of the apex to make sure they don't get spat out onto the gravel, they'll make their way through turn number 12 and up towards 13 and 14, flat out through the two corners, and then into the braking zone for turn 15. There, it's a double right-hander of 15 and 16, the Sud curve, and as they come through the medium speed corners, they'll look to get the best possible line out of 16 to do it all over again. But whereas the start lap is very fast-paced, the latter half of the lap is very technical, and therefore it creates a contrast, and it means in that first half of the lap you need to make your places soon, because otherwise you may find yourself struggling in the second portion. But coming on to remind you of our rules for tonight, of course, and our rules for this series. In qualifying, a lone qualifying format shall be used, where all of our drivers will take to isolated instances of the circuit and be given an opportunity to put in their qualifying laps. Speaking of qualifying laps, they'll have 8 minutes to set their best possible time. They have no limitation on how many laps they must do, but given the fact we're expecting lap times to be in the region of 1 minute 40, on average we're going to be seeing about 3 or 4 laps from our drivers. Race-wise, all races shall commence via a standing start. The sprint race grid shall be based on the results of qualifying, as is the tradition, and the feature race grid shall be a partial reverse grid based on the results of the sprint race with the top 8 positions inverted. So what that means in layman's English, the winner of the sprint race will be starting P8 on the feature race grid, meanwhile the 8th place finisher in the sprint race, they'll be starting on reverse grid pole position. And then 9th and downwards, well, that's exactly where they'll be starting the grid for the feature race based on their finishing position in the sprint race. There's no mandatory pit stops in either of our races, of course, and that's in both the sprint and the feature. One fast repair available is in each race, and we can also see their drivers should receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 14 or more instant points. But with that, that's enough rules, regulations, and everything in between. I know what you're all here for, and as we head back to our live pictures, let's bring up our schedule for tonight, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time at UTC. In just under what will be 2 minutes time, we'll be going into qualifying the 8-minute session to see who's able to put the car on pole, and after that we'll be heading straight into our first race of the day. That'll be the round number 7 sprint race, 12 minutes in nature at 10 past 8 this evening, and then we'll be taking a brief breather of approximately 2 minutes before returning it just before 8:30 there to get underway. Lights should be out about 8:30 for the feature race, and that'll of course be 2.5 times the duration of the sprint, and it'll be about time management just as much as it will be about consistency and outright pace. Whereas our drivers are absolutely itching to go, we do continue to see some of them making the way on around, and we do have one new driver to introduce as of today, and he's joined us as of what is this round onwards. It's not Nathan Foster from simracing Racing, but it's one of his colleagues from simracing Racing, and he's parked up in the pit lane there, and it is Nathan Scott in the 113 car. He joins us in the gold class the remainder of the season, and the Briton there competing with simracing Racing and competing an absolutely stacked gold class already. He's definitely going to have to make an impression early on, but as he gets set to go, indeed everybody absolutely itching to go racing here. The fastest man currently is Lee Holmes in the 88 Racing Team Purple Machine. machine as he makes his way down towards turn number 6. Of course, good luck to all of our drivers, and a special good luck there to Nathan Scott, because it is his debut in the series as of tonight. Leslie Holmes breaks his way down into turn number 6 here. It does look to be a little bit sparse on circuit at the moment. I think the majority of our drivers decide now to wait as Lee Holmes overturns the rear of the car, gets the power on a little bit too soon. But meanwhile, Tim Darracott making his way around him, keeping it nice and smooth as he makes his way out to turn number 10 in towards 11. And will smooth driving is going to be so critical here, given the fact that these Porsche Cup cars, by default, are very aggressive cars. They do like to bite, but on top of that, this is a circuit where you really need to manage that weight transfer on the car into the medium speed corners, and also when you do have these fast, snappy direction changes, because you put 2 and 2 together, you really do start to see these cars wobble about on that rear end. One of them being at mid-engine rear-wheel drive, but more really ideally rear-engine rear-wheel drive, because the engine is so far back behind the driver and close to the rear axle, as Darracott there has a little bit of a wobble, a little bit of an oversteer moment on power at turn number 16, and that's just one example of many we're expecting to see. But as he makes his way on through, we do look to Shane Piggott here, making his way into turn number 12, the 88 Tech Racing Team Red driver, rolling on through in turns 13 and 14 as he comes on through there, and as he gets ready to go with only half a minute remaining before we go into qualifying. Whilst we do wait to get underway, of course, we should let you know if you've been a long-time enjoyer of the broadcast at UKSimRacing or a long-time competitor in series and perhaps you're taking a hiatus for a little bit and tuning in tonight. Did you know that if you've ever thought about giving it back to UKSimRacing or supporting UKSimRacing, there is an easy and quick way to do so via our affiliates. UKSimRacing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Swello Meta Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere, and Demon Tweaks. And if you do head to our website, that's uksimracing.co.uk today, well, you'll be presented with a screen that does look like this. And if you look to the bottom left-hand corner there, albeit it's a little bit obscure because it's slightly off-screen, there's a button which is listed as discount stroke affiliate links. And if you click on that button, you'll be taken to the following page, and you can see the logos and images there of our respective affiliates. And while clicking on any of those affiliates images, you make purchases through the websites you're redirected to, and that results in discounts for you and a kickback to us. And because we are a non-profit organisation at UKSimRacing, all of our affiliate earnings shall be invested back into the community to fund future series, including future editions of the Porsche Cup, the GT3 League, and we've got plenty more planned for 2023 and onwards. Additionally, if you're not part of a UKSimRacing Discord at the moment, why not join today? Because firstly, you'll need to do so if you ever want to race with us, and also secondly, our affiliates do provide some discount codes on our Discord, which are only available there. So do remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UKSimRacing, and do join the UKSimRacing Discord as part of that can go a long way in supporting your sim racing ambitions. But with that, of course, thinking about our drivers' ambitions, well, right now, everybody are having the ambition of qualifying on pole in their respective class as qualifying gets underway here. And well, as our drivers make the way on around at the moment, you would imagine that everybody having to really build themselves up in this qualifying session. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, given the fact that the tyres on these Porsche Cup cars do take a couple of laps to come into the optimum temperature range, everybody, as a result, we're starting to tiptoe their way around, particularly in these low-speed hairpin corners where you want to get the power down as soon as possible. But the thing with these Porsche Cup cars, of course, is you do not have any traction control. Now, because you don't have traction control or TCS, that means that you have to essentially, as the driver, provide all the traction control yourself. You have to manage that throttle, make sure you don't get excess wheel spin, and that the rear tyres are able to deploy that power, because of course it's rear wheel drive this car. They deploy the power in the manner whereby it's controlled, but also you get the most effective run out the corner. Get it right, and you'll find that the car smoothly comes off the corner. It picks up a lot of speed. Get it wrong, however, you may find that rear end coming around before you're able to get the steering wheel straight. And of course, that's another balancing act as well. There's a lot of corners here, while drivers will be applying at least 45 degrees of steering lock, if not a lot more, and therefore they'll need to manage taking away that steering lock and bringing the power up as they go on through. But it's all a delicate balancing act, and that's why the Porsche Cup car is such a tricky car to drive, but also a very rewarding car when you do get it right. And the other thing the drivers will have to keep in mind, of course, is there's no anti-lock braking system on these cars, no ABS, because we are running the 992 Super Cup spec, whereby our drivers will have to do all the anti-lock braking management on their own feet. Either have to do it with their left foot if they're using left foot braking, alternatively right foot if they decide to use right foot throttle and braking as well. But either way they cut it, they've got to gradually balance the brake and make sure they don't get a lock-up, because we saw plenty of lock-ups at Magnified. Indeed, those who locked up into the hairpins ended up going straight on, or alternatively having to release the brake to avoid making contact with a rival in front. But as we do see here, Emil Koopman's making his way through turn number 12, gradually bringing himself on around at the moment and coming towards the end of what will be very shortly his first flying lap. In fact, he'll be going on to a flying lap very shortly. We should correct ourselves there. Well, as he comes on through, we'll shortly be riding on board with him to give you an idea of what it's like to drive around the Hockenheimring Grand Prix circuit. making his way out of the final corner and heading in towards turn number 1, in towards Nord curve, and we're in 5th gear at the moment, gets ready to roll on it, drops a gear, comes off the throttle, puts a bit of brake in, and just about stays in the track limits, and he makes it back towards turn number 2. The fast right now being followed up by the heavy braking zone at turn 2, braking there 120 metres, coming all the way down to 2nd gear as he clears the apex, now gets the car straightened up and powers through 3, through the kink of 4 as well, and now down towards the Sophisticated hairpin he goes. Now flat out at this point, all the way at the gearbox, this is where we'll see our drivers reach their highest top speeds as he makes his way on through Parabolica, but he gets ready to brake. He'll bring the car over to the left-hand side, look for his brake marker as well on his left. He'll be braking around the 150 metre board and coming all the way down from 6th to 1st gear, targeting, go for a symmetrical apex approach, and as he exits on out, gets the power down and now makes his way up towards turn number 7. Good lap so far, but now the change really comes. He makes his way into the Mercedes arena, going through the kink there flat out and now onto the brakes. Approximately 100 metres from corner apex. He brakes at the start of the entry curve on the right hand side, makes his way past the apex, doesn't hit the sausage curve there, avoids destabilising the car, through 9, balance the throttle here into turn number 10, short shifts and takes a bit too much curve, and as a result you can see there the front and right suspension just clattering off the curb and unsettling the rear of the car as he makes his way into turn number 11 here, flying on through in 4th gear, just starting to say a gear high to really keep the power down as he gets onto the brakes for turn number 12, head on through the stadium now, keeps it in nice and tight, uses a little bit of curve. The thing about these curves as well is they're deceptively high. They look flat to the tarmac, but they're anything but that. As he comes through 14, into the smooth curve he goes, through 15, goes a little bit deep there, but uses the width of the line to set up 16, but a little bit of understeer creeping in. I think it might just be a little bit of tyre temperature, a little bit of sensitivity, which he still needs to dial in as he makes his way to the line. And well, to be fair, it wasn't a perfect lap from Koopmans, but still he gave it everything there, and well, in fact, an invalidated lap, and I believe the lap invalidation may have actually come from where he went a little bit wide through turn number 1, so our drivers are not permitted to put 2 wheels entirely beyond that exit curbing, but instead Koopmans has to bring it in a bit closer, and he did at that time as he makes his way around. But speaking of drivers, we've already got times on the board as we see Tim Darracott there locking up into turn 12 and just missing the tyre barrier there and bringing it on through on the gravel and back to the tarmac. That could have been far, far worse and essentially ended his qualifying session. Do keep in mind, of course, in qualifying we do not have overtime available, which means when that clock strikes 8 minutes, our drivers are immediately returned to the pits. They do not have the ability to set that lap they're currently on. In terms of if they're on one, it will be aborted by default. But meanwhile, speaking of that default here, he's back to his default position. Lee Holmes here comes across the timing line, a 39.629. It's provisional pole at the moment, when as he makes his way up towards turn number 2. The big question many will be asking right now is, what is Philipp Hammer doing, given the fact that WS Racing eSports drive's gone purple in Sector 1, he's gone purple in Sector 2. The number 60 car is absolutely flying on around here, and to give you an idea, well, the purple in Sector 1 was only by 400. In Sector 2, he was purple by 1.5 tenths versus Holmes, and as he comes on through the final corner, well, I think it's going to be a strong lap, but how strong is it going to be as he comes to the timing line here with 2 minutes to go? He's got one more lap available to him, and well, it's counted. It's a 38.764, and it's almost 9 tenths faster than Lee Holmes there. Goodness me. And well, in the end, it is his final sector, which is absolutely staggering for Hammer versus Holmes. To put you in the picture, a whole 4 tenths faster in one sector alone, if my maths is correct. Meanwhile, Emil Koopmans slides himself into P2 and brings the deficit down to the pole sitter, down to 7.5 tenths rather than closer to 9 tenths. So everybody is trying to close that gap, but there's not long left to go here. But as they make the way on around, Ashington currently your silver pole sitter by comparison with the gold we've been focusing on, and the Will See Racing driver here trying to make it business as usual. As we see there, Roxanne Marshall currently P9, albeit second place in the silver class and off by 7 tenths. But to be fair, we've normally seen that Marshall's a lot stronger in the races than she is in qualifying, and therefore I think investing in the most critical part of the day, which is to get the results at the end of the checker flag rather than that qualifying session. But then again, track position is going to be important here, and Ashington right now doing everything right in terms of running a good qualifying session. But as that time continues to trickle on down here, only a minute to go, and Shane Piggott moves on up and gets ahead of Roxanne Marshall, and now up to P2, P9, and Ryan Walker jumps up to P8 there, dethroning Piggott down to P10. But as they all coming through here, and Ryan Walker in the gold class, we can see James Kerstop puts in that with 40.682 with 40 seconds to go, so that will be his final qualifying lap. But again, Kerstop having a good qualifying session, but can he convert it into the race results he wants? That's the challenge that he's confronted with time and time again, as we're in the Marshals in the pit lane. The most are definitely not going back out on circuit. We still do have 3 drivers yet to put a lap in, including Craig Schill, and with 20 seconds to go, this will not count. He will will be invalidated because he will not get to the timeline before the 8 minutes are up. So I think for Schill here, it's about just backing off and parking up, which he does so immediately. And, well, Philipp Hammer right now, he's absolutely delivered once again as he comes to Hockenheimring for turn number 4. Joe Newman crossed the line, there goes P10. But for Hammer, it's pole position by 7 tenths over Tim Darracott overall in the gold class. And it's Ash England pole P7 overall in the silver class. But with qualifying complete, it's time for us to take to the grid and take you through how they line up for round number 7. So our drivers line up as follows here for the sprint race of the day at the Hockenheimring Grand Prix circuit. Philipp Hammer from iRacing eSports puts in another absolute flyer of a qualifying lap to qualifying pole by 7 tenths over the Effect eSports driver Tim Darracott. Behind them on row number 2, it's Marcel Fritsch, iRacing eSports' second driver there in the order ahead of Apex Missers Emil Koopmans. Row 3 goes to test.The Racing Team Purple's Lee Holmes, joined by Blackout Motorsport New Zealand's Samuel Sproul. And on row number 4, we have your silver pole sitter of Ash England starting P7 for Willesee Racing, joined by Satellite Racing's Ryan Walker in P8. Nathan Scott and Joe Newman occupy row number 5, the two simracing drivers, with Nathan Scott having a good debut in qualifying there, P9 to split the grid, with Shane Piggott and James Kershaw outside the top 10, the two silver drivers on row at number 6 for test.The Racing Team Red, joined by the Privateer. Following on through a bit further down the grid, we can see there in P13 and P14, Glenn Humberstone ahead of Roxanne Marshall, and they occupy your 7th row for test.The Racing Team Purple and 24-hour Punty People respectively. And then we do have on the 8th row Steve Hughes, the Privateer, joined by Matt Maddox from BDM Racing. The 9th row goes to Alistair Hatcher from test.The Racing Team Cyan, joined by Simman Racing's Nathan Foster. And then our final row goes to Craig Schill and Ross McPhail, the two silver drivers, with the test.The Racing Team Cyan driver out-qualifying the Privateer of McPhail. But that, of course, is qualifying. We look to the grid here for race number 1, and with only 40 seconds left to go in front of an absolutely packed grandstand, as you can see in the background, all our drivers itching to go racing. But who is going to come out on top between Hammer and Darracott into turn number 1? It's tight, and there's only really one line through turn 1. It's on the outside, and as they get ready to go, 20 seconds, we're just waiting for Craig Schill to join at the back of the grid at the moment in P19, but otherwise everybody itching. Those temperatures are soaring on the track, and as they look forward and look down towards turn number 1, will it be heartache for some? We're about to find out, given the fact it's time for the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for race 1 of the day in round 7 of the Porsche Cup Season 5 as Philipp Hammer gets a good start. Tim Darracott immediately under attack from Marcel Fritsch, who goes around the outside. They go too wide into the opening corner, but as they roar their way on through, everyone in the medley behind him. We've got a lot of drivers stepping on one another's toes. Ash England having a disastrous start there as he heads down to the braking zone for turn number 2. And he's having to fend off here. Where's Roxanne Marshall also going to the offensive versus Shane Piggott as they all come through the second hairpin. And as they make them through, Marshall goes round. And it looks like everyone's been able to evade the way with 24-hour Punty People Porsche, but meanwhile we look to the front of the field here in the battle for P2, and it is still Darracott versus Fritsch as Marcel Fritsch looks up the inside here in the long run in towards the Spitzer hairpin. It's the battle on cold brakes and cold tyres in now. Who's going to lock up first? Well, they both make the way and they both just about make it, and Fritsch gets ahead. He makes sure Darracott's not got a counter attack, and as they make the way out towards turn number 7, everybody comes on through for the first time asking they're safe and sound. The only driver losing out was Marshall at the start, and as they make the way out towards the Mercedes corner at turn number 8, you can see there Lee Holmes looking on as meanwhile Darracott tries to find his way back. But meanwhile, looking a bit further back here, Shane Piggott having a great start, but losing out to Ash England, the run down towards turn number 6. Well, car straight on. That's Matt Maddox there, I think, trying to avoid the lock-up by rolling into the runoff area. He's got the space to play with it, but now he's going to have Craig Schill going around his outside, or trying to very shortly as they come on through. Ross McPhail gets it done, but meanwhile, we've got Joe Newman, who's just got off circuit there, rejoins. But what on earth happened to Joe Newman? We're not quite sure. We'll find out about that very shortly. We'll get a replay, hopefully. But meanwhile, Ash England up the inside of James Kershaw, and well, he lost a lot of place at the start, but the Willesee Racing driver here goes up the inside to turn 12 and takes James Kershaw away as they make the way into turn at number 15. And well, for the Briton, it's now business as usual once again, but he's definitely done it a bit more dramatic way than perhaps he would have liked. So after one lap, it's Hammer who leads ahead of Fritsch, followed by Darracott. Then it's Holmes, followed up by Koopmans in P5. Scott P6, Brown P7, followed up by Brian at Walker P8. And it's your silver leader of Ash England P9 ahead of Kershaw, and Shane Piggott bets their arrest in at P11 there as they make the way onto lap number 2. 2 minutes complete, still another 10 to go. And as they make the way down towards turn number 2 once again, there's a potential move coming up here from Glenn Humberstone. He takes a look, but he can't quite find it. Steve Hughes there, I think, brings himself to the inside first and says, hold on, Glenn, I'm going first. I'm going to have a go at this. I'll let you have it next time. And as they make the way out to turn number 4 and down towards 6 there, You can definitely see that right now Humberstone and Hughes both wanting to make ground on Pigott, but I think Pigott here is just going to simply keep them fighting one another at the rate of knots they're moving at. But as they make their way down towards the next corner, we are going to try and bring our circuit map back for you very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. And in fact, it does rematerialise there. A little technical issue has scraped away. We're going to see Glenn Humberstone getting a good run, but Nathan Foster, meanwhile, trying to catch back up here after what has been a good start for Nathan Foster, trying to get into the fight for the top 10. He's gained 4 places and 1 place in class over the course of the opening lap, and as he heads up towards turn number 8 for the second time of asking, well, for Foster, it's about playing it safe and being smart, of course. He's got time, he's not got long, but he has got time to make moves, and as he comes through turn at number 10 at the moment, we say hello there to Medbo in the YouTube chat who says Hammer putting the hammer down yet again, indeed. And right now our race leader continues to pull away as we see the Porsches roaring on past here, and meanwhile Roxanne Marshall at the back of the field will carry on here, but with a little bit of wound and bruise in there with regards to the mental state of racing at the moment, and of course that incident not without having an impact on a race, but still more racing later on today. But meanwhile, as we look back towards the front of the field, Marcel Fritsch at the moment still holding on to P2. You can see that pressure building from behind as they make their way on to the next lap. Fritsch holding off Darracott as they make their way into turn 1, both of them clattering over the sausage curb and making their way up towards turn number 2. Neither driver wanting to give in at the moment. They do have Holmes with them as well, and as they make their way into the Ironfoot Parabolica, well, you can see just all 3 drivers using the same line there. But Fritsch opened up turn 4 a little bit more interesting. He's got a bit more confidence in the rotation of the car coming off of 2, 3 and into 4. And I think that might be a sign now the tyres are in the optimum temperature window for our drivers. They are starting to feel the flexibility in the car. And speaking of flexibility here, Fritsch is going to have to be flexible in terms of how he plays his defence, because Darracott gets the nose ahead briefly, but then Fritsch puts it on the inside there, but he goes a bit deep on corner exit. Darracott gets a good run off the corner, but as they make the way up towards turn number 7, well, now, is it going to be Darracott who finds the move, or does he find himself being attacked in return as they make the way up towards Mercedes? We've got an exchange going on a bit further back, which we'll take a look back at very shortly, but these guys seem to right now just be all nose to tail, but not making moves one another. Meanwhile, Samuel Sproul there, who's lost 1 place in class and overall since the start of the race, but still holding on to P7 in the gold class and overall, chasing after Nathan Scott, and Nathan Scott's gained 3 places by comparison, 2 in class as they make their way into turn number 11. But meanwhile, whilst it's all going on at the front of the field, we've also had a couple of things happen at the back of the field, including Joe Newman having an off track at lap number 1. Now, what happened to Joe Newman, who's run quite nicely ahead of Emil Koopmans and, well, hit the curb at turn 10. Oh, goodness me. And, well, for Newman, as he tried to rejoin, he went sideways off the circuit. They're bouncing off the curb, and the car in the end, well, I think he had a bit of a whack to the wall, but he's brought it back onto the circuit, and that was not the way he wanted to start his day. But meanwhile, return to live pictures here from one simracing driver to another. Nathan Scott battling side by side with Sproul on the inside. He goes for the move. He goes for it into Nord Curve, and now as they exit out, Ryan Walker here says, okay, 2 can play that game, and as he makes his way on through on the inside here, well, it's daylight robbery for Nathan Scott. Meanwhile, Walker wants more, and he goes on the brakes, but he locks up there, but then just gets the car stopped in time, but that could have been near to carnage. But as they make their way through turn number 4, I think given the level of professionalism seen from our drivers here, there was no risk in the end as they make their way down towards turn number 6. Ryan Walker, he made the gains, but then I think getting a little bit greedy with that potential move into turn 2, but you don't know if you don't try. And as he makes his way up towards turn number 6, he'll know he can make the move there on Scott, but he's going to have to be a bit more careful if he tries to go for a double. But as they come through turn 6 now, oh goodness me, and what on earth has happened there? And Sproul's onto his roof, and I think that is contact with Marcel Fritsch, who was trying to turn himself around, and well, that's an absolute nightmare for both Fritsch and Sproul. I hope Sproul's okay from that knock, albeit may be virtual, but I think he might be a bit shaken up by that. And as they make the way around right now, we'll take a look back at what exactly happened very shortly there, but that was not something we like to see. Of course, when incidents happen like that, it's an absolute nightmare to witness. And well, as Rich heads on through, we'll very shortly have a replay come up as to what occurred, but this definitely has opened things up in the battle for P2, because Lee Holmes now holding on to 2nd place, and he's only half a tenth clear, with about half a second we should say clear, of Tim Darracott as they make the way through turn 15 into 16. Hammer by comparison has already opened up almost 8 seconds of a lead, so it really is now the battle for P2 and further down, as Hammer seems to just be running off into the distance with this. Well, we do have a replay coming up with regards to what happened to Marcel Fritsch, and we do get to take a look as of now. Was he's making his way down into turn number 6 there. You can see Darracott on his inside, so this is how it all started. Now making his way on through. A bit of contact there with Darracott. He got turned and a whack to Lee Holmes as well, as Lee Holmes tried to cut around, and then, oh goodness me, Fritsch trying to turn the car around as Sproul came on around the corner. Well, I think they're both drivers trying to avoid one another. Fritsch trying to get off the road, meanwhile Sproul trying to go around the outside and off the road in return, and because both drivers tried to do the same thing at the same time, it ended up the way it did. Very unfortunate for the pair of them. As we return to the live pitch, we look to Nathan Scott here battling with Ryan Walker once again. Walker up is inside, and well, a little bit of a lock up there, a little bit of squeak on the front right tyre, and as he makes his way out, Nathan Scott gets back ahead for the time being, but Walker definitely trying to push the tempo here as we ride on board with the satellite racing driver. Now heading into Mercedes corner at turn number 8, of course only 2 tenths clear of silver leader Ash England, who's also got the pressure of James Kersop building behind him by 7 tenths. You imagine Walker here is being goaded on a little bit into getting a move for that P6 done, or for that P5 done we should say, given the fact that England right now will want him to hurry up, as otherwise be trying to find his way on through and put the gold drive between himself and his next silver rival. But as they head through turn 11 up towards 12, no sign at the moment of Walker being close enough to try and threaten a move here into the stadium. Goes a little bit deep, but brings it back to a V-shaped approach to the corner and exit as he makes way through 13 into 14 here. We're definitely feeling the effects of a bit of dirty air for the Porsche in front, as right now Scott has clear air by comparison with 3.5 seconds between himself and Emil Koopmans up the road. And as they come out of the final corner and go on to another lap, Walker goes a bit wide but just about keeps in track limits as they make their way onto turn number 1 once again. Now heading into the right-hander here, rolling the way on through, and this is where Walker has proven to be very strong by comparison with most of the drivers around him in the run through turn 1 into 2. He's been 2.5 tenths here, closing at a good rate of knots. Close up very nicely under braking as well. It could be his run as he heads up towards turn 6 this time. It all depends on power deployment here as they come through 2, 3, 4 and up towards 5, 6 they go. But as they make the way on through, well right now you can see that gap has actually swung the other way. Scott is being reeled in, but only by a little bit of time, 100 metre by 100 metre. In fact, not really gaining it now as Walker. He's now been 2.5 tenths but has to stay behind and not go for the move there. He's too far back to try and threaten. Meanwhile, speaking of threatening, we can see here James Kersop in the 99 car, definitely trying to keep Ash England honest as they make the way out to 6 and into 7. Getting the move on here, and in return he does have Shane Piggott behind him, and Piggott will be trying to put that pressure on as much as he can as they head on through. Meanwhile, whilst all this is happening, we have had a change of position for P2 in the golden overall categories, with Tim Darracott getting back ahead of Lee Holmes as then Nathan Foster goes a bit deep into turn number 8 but brings it back before he ends up on to the runoff area. And well, how did that move for P2 occur? We take a look back. Well, this was in the run to turn number 8, only moments to go. It's a lock up there for Lee Holmes, and Tim Darracott simply seizes the opportunity and the space with it. But as we return to live pictures here, we look a little bit further back in the order to Glenn Humberstone, who's fighting with Joe Newman. Newman just found his way past Glenn Humberstone, the gold driver, getting ahead of the silver ATX Racing Team Purple driver. But as they make the way on through the latter half of the lap now, and really coming on to another lap very shortly. We will have 2 more laps to go for these guys. They make the way through 16 and on to the next one. So we will be getting a total of 8 laps in this sprint race, with our leader already on to turn number 5 as we speak. And you can see there from the track map in the top right corner of your screen. And that goes to show how much of this race Philipp Hammer is extending. And well, I wonder if any of our drivers here might be thinking they haven't got enough fuel to get to the end of the sprint. But of course, we have seen that in the feature where drivers are under-fueled, not expecting a certain number of laps. But as they come on down into turn at number 2 at the moment, well, we've still got some battles to unfold. And perhaps the biggest one at the moment is the battle for P5 in the gold class and overall, because what it's also doing is causing a bit of a concertina to occur. It was causing a concertina to occur, but as we look from them up to P2, well, Darracott's had a poor run off for turn 6, and Lee Holmes here having to really try and dig in now and hold on to the position he's coveted and gained as they make the way through 7 into 8, and Darracott there looks around the outside, and meanwhile Holmes defends in the middle of the road. Emil Koopmans is getting close as well. He's thinking about this. They will have 1 more lap with Hammer already into the stadium section, so there will be time. And as they make the way on towards turn number 11 right now, well, Holmes getting the better run off for turn number 10. Holmes does seem to have the better run of form through these medium speed sweepers, but by comparison Darracott does seem to have the run on the straights and also into those heavy braking zones. And as they come out of turn number 11 through 12 they roll, all in sequence here. It's now a game of fast-paced chess in the fact that each driver here is looking for that opportunity if they're trying to make a move. Meanwhile, Lee Holmes is trying to guess where he needs to position the car corner after corner on this final lap as they head on through and go into the final lap of the sprint here. The clock's about to strike 12 minutes as we see Darracott taking a bit of a brief excursion onto the grass, but he brings it back together and right on board here. Darracott's as close as he'll ever be as they make their way through Nordkurven onto the final lap. And charging the way down towards turn at number 2. The 18 driver here looking for that position. Can't quite find it at the moment, too far back. But it looks like it'll be a run out of 2 up towards 5. But you can see there, Holmes taking a bit of a different line, catching the car on the apex curve, and in fact thwarting Darracott to be able to run on the apex curve and off as he scrapes his windshield there. Perhaps a bit of dirt on the screen that he doesn't want there anymore. And as he makes his way down towards turn at number 6 in the charge, gradually gaining, but it's not enough. He gets within 1.5 tenths, but he's not able to put the move on as they make the way onto the anchors. And as they come out of the corner a bit further back, Glenn Humberstone battling here with Alistair Hatcher. It's the rise and the battle of the 88 Tech Racing Team Purple drivers for P4, P5, P6 in the silver class. They make the way on down. This is not a photo opportunity, we should point out, ladies and gentlemen. They're all fighting for position. They're 3 wide under braking, and will Humberstone in the middle as they make the way, on the inside there as they make the way in. The 2 Team Cyan drives a crank shield going around the outside of Alistair Hatcher, and it's reverse Moses there as we can see that Hatcher losing 2 places at the price of 1 under braking, and Glenn Humberstone getting the job done. But meanwhile, speaking of drivers who've got the job done, well, from qualifying to the start of this race, he's not hesitated. He pulled the trigger when the light went green, and he's never looked back. He's led every lap in this race, and as he comes on through, he's here to stay. It's WS Racing eSports Philipp Hammer who takes the win in the round number 7 sprint here at the Hockenheimring, and he does so by 14 seconds almost over Lee Holmes, the 88 Tech Racing Team Purple driver, who comes on through, holds off Darracott, holds off Koopmans to take P2, and then Darracott will finish P3 in the golden overall category ahead of Emil Koopmans, with Nathan Scott there, P5 just ahead of Ryan Walker. And then your silver winner is Ash England for Willesee Racing, the number 34 Britain. Bringing home another great result ahead of Nathan Foster. James Kersott right up on the second step of the podium, holding off Shane Piggott, who completes the overall top 10, and he completes also the silver podium. Marcel Fritsch P11, Joe Newman at P12 as he comes on through, and it'll be Glenn Humberstone ahead of rival 88 Tech Racing drivers of Craig Shield and Alistair Hatcher, and then Roxanne Marshall, not her race at the start today, with that spin at turn number 2, P16, and then Steve Hughes P17 with an instant towards the end. Matt Maddox P18 as he comes on through, and I believe that was Samuel Sprout P19 there, a lap down after being inverted at one point. And then we can see Matt Maddox completing the run of our drivers with only 1 retirement, 5 laps down, Ross McPhail, as Matt Maddox completes his race. But with that complete, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the 2-minute warm-up session, and we can give you a quick recap of those results before we go racing once again. So in race number 1 of today, round 7 of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup Season 5 here at Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg Grand Prix Circuit. Philipp Hammer taking the win in the end by 13.5 seconds for WS Racing eSports. A phenomenal margin to go with a phenomenal driver, and Lee Holmes there holding on to P2 in a dugout and battling hard at P2 for 88 Tech Racing Team Purple ahead of Effect Esports' Tim Darracott P3. The 2 exchanging the position back and forth, but then it was Holmes who was able to make it his. Emil Koopmans not too far behind for Apex Misses at P4, with P2 3 to P4 being separated by a single second over the line, and then Nathan Scott P5 for Simracing Racing, holding off Satellite Racing's Ryan Walker. Ash England there, P7 overall, your silver class winner for Willesee Racing, back on top form ahead of Nathan Foster, and then James Kersott, the privateer, onto the second step of the podium, and I believe that is his first second of the season, although I may be mistaken on that, but definitely a strong result the way he wants it to go. Shane Piggott completes the overall top 10 with 3rd place in the silver class for 88 Tech Racing Team Red, a great performance from him, and then Marcel Fritsch, best of rest there in P11 for WS Racing eSports after that difficult moment with Samuel Sprout early on in the race, and then Joe Newman P12 for Simracing Racing ahead of Glenn Humberstone and Craig Shield, those 2 drivers completing the run of the top 5 in the silver class for 88 Tech Racing Team Purple and Team Cyan respectively, and then Alistair Hatcher P15 being robbed by his teammates right at the end of the race ahead of Roxanne Marshall for 24-hour Punty People, and then Steve Hughes the privateer ahead of Matt Maddox, and then our other 2 drivers of Samuel Sprout there a lap down but carrying on to the end for Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, and the early retirement of course of Ross McPhail, 5 laps on the finish there, the privateer, not the way he wanted it to go in the sprint, but of course we're not too far away from going racing once again in the feature, ladies and gentlemen. Only what is 10 seconds or so away, and as we get ready to go here, we can see the warm-up timer at the top of your screen. Well, all the drivers right now either parked up in the pit lane or in their garages. It's an empty circuit, but I can tell you one thing, it's not going to be empty for long, because we're about to head to the grid for our round 8 feature. And as the grid is being set, well, in fact, it'll be set very shortly indeed as our flagman waves there. The grid is now being set, and we take you through the grid for round number 8. They line up as follows for the Hockenheimring feature race. Nathan Foster there for simracing on pole ahead of Ash England for Willesee Racing. There is Ryan Walker and Nathan Scott who line up on the second row, joined on the third row by Emil Koopmans and Tim Darracott. The fourth row goes to Lee Holmes and Philipp Hammer. That's the top 8 reverse grid, of course, and it's James Kersop and Shane Piggott, P9, P10. It's a silver row number 5, ahead of row number 6 is Marcel, Fritsch and Joe Newman. They complete your top 12. Then on row number 7, we have the pair of Glenn Humberstone and Craig Shield, followed up by row number 8, Alistair Hatcher and Roxanne Marshall. Row number 9 is the pair of Steve Hughes and Matt Maddox, looking to have a better race. The same goes for our final row of the grid, row number 10, Samuel K. Sproul and Ross McPhail. But that's how they'll line up on the grid, and now we get ready to go racing once more. And, well, it's going to be 30 minutes here. The stakes could not be higher with tyre wear, consistency, and a relentless circuit, but we await the lights. It's 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 2, round 8 of the Porsche Cup. And as Nathan Foster gets a good start, they make their way down. There's been an install already towards the rear of the field, and I believe Steve Hughes has been caught up in that. But as I try to make the way on through, Tim Darracott immediately going on the offensive versus Lee Holmes as they come on down towards turn at number 2. Should we say Lee Holmes is on the offensive here, given the fact that Darracott started ahead of him as they make the way onto the brakes. Behind there you can see Joe Newman trying to fend on the inside here versus Marcel Fritsch and James Kersop. And as they come out to the right hand and gone through, well, a bit further back, Glenn Humberstone as well in the medley, chasing after Roxanne Marshall. But as they come through, he goes round, and it's very unfortunate, but everybody swings out the way and just about avoids Humberstone going for a spin there on cold tyres. But meanwhile, towards the front of the field, Ash England, of course, with the inverted grid, working out nicely for him and fending off some of the gold drivers around him. But he's got Emil Koopmans up his inside, lock up there of Emil Koopmans. Meanwhile, a bit further back, James Kersop goes wide, and even more so, Philipp Hammer there being caught up, and Hammer dropping down the order to P12. I think there's been even more of an instant further back there, as we have got, I think that's Craig Shield and Ross McPhail coming together. Goodness me, it is curtains and tears for many a driver. But meanwhile, as they all settle down the run to turn number 8, a lock up there for Lee Holmes, and Lee Holmes has been knocked backwards as well. I think the run to turn number 6 has really caught out a number of drivers as they make the way out to turn number 10 now and head up towards 11. But you can see that it's 3 wide with Hammer on the inside, Marshall in the middle, and then Lee Holmes going the other side as they come on through. Well, Marshall there backs out, Hammer does the same on the inside, and Lee Holmes goes 2 to 3 wide around turn number 11 and picks up the 2 places and holds on to them as they come through. Meanwhile, we can see then Marshall still battling on the inside versus Alistair Hatcher and trying to take the place back here for 24-hour Bunty people as the 88 Tech racing driver holds on versus Woody Samuel Sproul behind, but Marshall goes deep, and by going deep here, it's an off track. It may be a slowdown as well as they come out to turn number 16, which has been a crazy first lap, but it even gets more crazy as we see Marshall loses the car, and in the end, it is what is Shane Piggott there who gets collected with her as they go on to lap number 2, but it's definitely not been an open lap we expected as they brought on now down towards turn number 2 once again. As we see Lee Holmes here fending off Philipp Hammer for the time being, where you can imagine right now for Hammer, he wants to clear this field as much as possible. And has he picked up any damage in all the medley that's been going on the opening lap? Well, that's the big question here, and will he be impacted? But meanwhile, one driver right now, the only damage he will have is a little bit of a worry with regards to Walker. In terms of Ryan Walker going up the inside, it will be a damage to their advantage over the rest of the field behind. As Ryan Walker there goes up the inside, it's a small, succinct move, and he gets it done for a lead. But then again, Nathan Foster may be prioritising the fact this is a 30-minute race, not a 12-minute race, and they've got a long way to go as they make their way through turn 7 up towards 8. Now heading onto the brakes, we can see there Nathan Scott just behind simracing, having a really good start to this race by comparison with race number 1. And as they make the way through turn number 8 and in towards 10, well, right now the Briton here on his debut are definitely getting a feeling for the car as he makes his way in towards 11 and looking to be on the pace as he makes his way into that right-hander and a bit further back. We see Matt Maddox here in P3 in the silver class at the moment, and will run a very comfortable P3 with quite a bit of space around him. But he's got the company of Shane Piggott there in the rear of the picture, and also Craig Shield catching up gradually. And we have still got some more place changes occurring a bit further down the order. I believe James Kersop is continuing to try and fight his way through the field, and Steve Hughes the same as they make their way in towards turn number 12. But as they come towards the end of lap number 2, here's your leader, and let's take you through that top 10. It's Walker and Nathan Foster by a margin of half a second as they go on to lap number 3, followed by Scott, and then it's England, Ash England in P4. P4 there, and he's your silver leader, followed up by Koopmans and Darracott. Then in P7 we've got Newman, followed by Marcel Fritsch as they make the way on down, and it's Holmes, Hammer and Hatcher, who is the best of the rest here in P11 as they head on through. But meanwhile, we can see here Lee Holmes having to go defensive versus Hammer once again. He finds himself in the WKSimRacing eSports sandwich here, and it's got a filler of an 88 tip racing Team Purple filler as he makes his way through turn number 4, and onwards towards 6 he goes in the run down here. And as they make the way on the accelerators, you can see the fact that some drivers are really optimising or going at 4 straight line speed, others deciding to go for downforce above the wells. But as they head onto the brakes, meanwhile Emil Koopmans already on the anchors and getting up the inside there of Ash England. Darracott trying to come through with him as well as they make the way off of 6, up towards 7 they go, and behind them, well, we see here Matt Maddox under a bit of pressure from Shane Piggott, who looks up the inside, and despite the damage on the front of the car, he locks up. And Maddox simply says, okay, I'll just go back on the inside, thank you very much. And there's Shane Piggott coming a bit too hot, and I think that damage also impacts his braking force as they head up towards turn number 7. Through the fast right they'll make it, and as they head in towards the Mercedes corner, well, will Piggott be coming back soon? I think Maddox, all he needs to do is keep it smart, keep it safe, and not put a foot wrong, and he's definitely guaranteed a good result here in the feature. But as he heads on through turns 9 and 10, we've got a long way to go, and with it, of course, tyre degradation, consistency at tyre, it all plays a big factor. But meanwhile, speaking of big factors here, we've got to change of place between the two simracing drives. Nathan Scott up the inside there into turn number 13 versus Foster, and I think right now the two of them designed to swap places here, given the fact it does look as though Nathan Scott the faster of the two, and they do not want Brian Walker to be able to run away with this. He's already got 1.1 second gap as they head on to the next lap. As they make the way onto the lap number 4, you can see the long line of drivers forming. Lee Holmes there in the second pack, in amongst what is Marcel Fritsch and Hammer, with Joe Newman leading this quartet. They make the way towards turn number 2, but it is now all golds inside the top 10, minus Ash England, who is your silver, of course, and then it's Philipp Hammer who's trying to creep into the top 10 in P11. All taking a look at one another here as we ride on board with Philipp Hammer as he makes his way down the Parabolica straight. Now powering up through the gearbox here. The challenge for Hammer, of course, will be that if he can find the move on Holmes, well, he'll find it early under braking, but then he's got to try and pick his way past Fritsch and Newman, and they're not going to make it easy. Fritsch may, depending on what they do agree between them as teammates, but as you can see, Holmes, they're going defensive once again. He knows if Hammer gets on through, he may just be gone. Well, as they come on through turn number 6 there, Holmes gets it set very nicely, and Hammer just to turn in and tuck him behind once more. But right now, Lee Holmes really trying to put himself out there to make sure that Hammer's not able to make that progress. And of course, it's for everybody when you imagine that Holmes right now could really, by keeping Hammer here, prevent Hammer from carrying all that momentum through and doubling his point score in the championship so far as they make their way through turns 9 and 10. Now going on through at the right hand here, all of them going through the depression of the curve, up towards 11 they go, being careful that exit curve. You see the ride and the exit sausage curve, and the car being unsettled as a result of it, but in the long right here, and now up towards 12, it's really one a line now, unless anybody makes an error. But speaking of errors, we saw it there in the distance, and it is, I believe, Nathan Foster who's had an off track at turn number 12. He's dropped behind Emil Koopmans, and as he brings himself back up to speed, could this be at the beginning of a gradual fall back towards Darracott in England as he makes his way through turn number 16 here? It's where he does make a mistake, but I think it's been a very costly mistake for Nathan Foster. In fact, it's not listed as an off track, but I believe he may have put 2 wheels wide and onto the gravel coming through turn number 12 and just caught the car in time as they now make the way down towards turn number 2 again. And we'll Hammer here, definitely now trying to get the Hammer down. We've got some move, he's got the run on the inside here versus Holmes. Holmes is going to try and outbrake him, but he's got to give the space. Hammer there tries to get his nose in a bit of contact with them on corner exit. As they make the way on through, Hammer once again prevented from finding his way on through. Meanwhile, a bit further back, Craig Shield here, battling with Shane Piggott. It's going to be Piggott on your right hand side of your picture, Craig Shield on your left as they come through. You see there, Matt Maddox locking up. It's going to be 3 wide on corner exit, but sensibly there, you can see that Piggott and Shield both backing off and now trying to get the speed in the run down towards turn number 6. Behind them, Steve Hughes, the gold driver who was heavily impacted at the start of the race, also trying to get into this fight. It's 4 of them battling in the run, and it's going to be 3 wide there as they head up towards turn number 6. It's going to be Shield on the inside, Maddox in the middle, and Piggott on the outside. Onto the brakes they go. Shield backs out. Meanwhile, Maddox goes all the way and he locks up a little bit there, but he just about stops the car. And in return, as they come out the corner, it's a bit of a tap on the rear by Piggott, and that gives an opportunity to Craig Shield to come up the inside here as they make their way into turns 7 and 8. It's definitely a battle for P3 to remember in the silver class right now as Maddox trying to come back into Mercedes arena, but Shield holds him off there as they make their way through the left-hander at turn number 8. And it looks like the move may be done for now as they head on towards the next section of corners, but as they roll the way out to turn number 10, can Craig Shield hold on to it for long? Because Maddox right now definitely has a bee in his bonnet, and that is he wants that P3 back as they make the way in towards turn number 11. We're coming on through the right and into the eventual left-hander. A little bit further up the road, Alistair Hatcher up the inside of Nathan Foster. And Nathan Foster has dropped all the way down the order from what was P4 at the time and now down to P12. What exactly has happened to Nathan Foster? Well, this is in the run to turn number... Oh, goodness me, and that was into turn number 11 and going completely sideways. In fact, that was turn number 8. We should correct ourselves. And Nathan Foster in that contact with Emil Koopmans, the car going on around and, well, not working out for Nathan Foster at all there as he now brings himself back up to speed, but definitely not the way he wanted it to go. And as we return to live pictures, there's still plenty more to go here as we do look to Ash England right now, trying to fend off Tim Darracott as Darracott looks up the inside here. As they head the way onto the brakes, well, Darracott going for the move. England's not going to fight this one too hard, I would imagine. And as he makes his way out of the corner and now up towards turn number 7, Darracott makes his way through past the silver leader. And England here, where he's putting his foot down to a degree in terms of fighting with them. But at the same time, I think he respects the fact that he's got a lot of gold drivers behind him right now. And he does effectively have an 11-second margin over second place in the silver class. That's P12 overall driver Alistair Hatcher. And he could afford to let the gold drivers go if he so desires. But of course, there's a little bit of pride with this. He would like to claim a couple of gold positions over the course of the race here today. So therefore, it's not just all about letting them go as he lets it go there into turn number 11. And we say hello there to Roscoe in the YouTube channel. I do believe that might be Ross McFowle. And well, sorry to see the retirement there for you, Ross, if that is you. But hopefully you do have a better round next time. Indeed, speaking of things that happened at the start of the race, we've yet to get a recap of what exactly happened to a number of our drivers, including Ross McFowle there at the very start. We will try and get a look back at that when we do have the opportunity available. But of course, at any moment we may see more battles enterprise their way onto our screens, and well, when those battles do kick off, they are certainly spectacular. But as we see Hammer here continue to try and find his way past Lee Holmes, he's been this close for a long period of time, and it does look as though every time he has this opportunity, Lee Holmes just finds a way to frustrate him that little bit more. And well, Holmes definitely showing that defensive graft that has made him one of the rising stars and one of the big names in the gold class season after season as they come through turn number 4 and down towards 6-8 Raw. But in the charge, of course, everything's equaled out to a degree with the toe. But meanwhile, looking back here, we've got Shane Piggott going very slowly coming out of turn number 1. I think he might be serving a slowdown here because he's dropped all the way back to P18. He's lost plenty of places, falling back 4 places by our count. And right now, Steve Hughes, one of the drivers who's made his way on through, as we see the privateer here heading down towards turn number 6, now chasing after Matt Maddox. But keep in mind, of course, every place he gains for the time being, it's only overall position, not class position. He's a gold driver versus a load of silvers around him as he heads into turn number 6. Now heading on through the right-hander, well, we have had a tow to the pits for what is Shane Piggott and also for Roxanne Marshall, who's recently had an off-track, but we believe that Shane Piggott may have had to retire, and also Marshall may have had a retirement as well. So we have had 3 retirements in this race now. Roxanne Marshall, Shane Piggott, and also Ross McFowle. Unfortunate for them, commiserations for the silver drivers. It does, of course, present opportunities for other silver drivers now to pick up potential big results. And, of course, included in that is Craig Schill, who right now running P3 in the silver class and, well, falling back of Alistair Hatcher. But at the same time, he's only 1.1 seconds clear of Matt Maddox. He is gradually putting a bit of distance between himself and Maddox. In fact, that mistake there from Maddox is only going to compound his woes, so they make their way into 12. But he didn't run completely wide there, just 2 wheels into the gravel coming out of turn number 11. And as he brings it through turn number 12, he won't be making that mistake again in a hurry. He'll know to correct that next time as he makes his way into 15. So if he goes any wider, the car will be taken away completely onto the gravel and over towards the tyre barrier. But meanwhile, goodness me, what on earth has happened to Nathan Foster? It's been a tow to the pits, and well, whilst that's happened, Lee Holmes here once again having to hold off Hammer as Philipp Hammer looks to try and find a way around the outside through turns 3 and 4, and this time he still cannot find it. Well, Lee Holmes definitely now really putting up a defensive wall. But meanwhile, speaking of defensive walls, Ash England here under pressure for UKSimRacing by the simracing driver there, Joe Newman, who goes up the inside, but it's a lock up on the brakes. He goes well beyond the corner, and well, Ash England definitely frustrating the gold group behind as they all try and pick their way past the UKSimRacing driver. But the number 34 car right now stays strong. It's a stall to P5 as he heads on through towards Mercedes corner. Now as he heads up towards the left-hander, the interesting thing here is that Joe Newman has threaded himself back into the mix between Lee Holmes and Philipp Hammer, and what this will mean effectively now is that will Newman become the new roadblock, if you will, for Philipp Hammer's progress, and will in return Lee Holmes be able to make his way away. Will Newman there goes slightly offline to cover off what was a potential look for a move by Hammer, and as they make the way through 11 into 12, well, Hammer definitely right now showing signs of wanting to get on through, and I think frustration is building inside the German's cockpit now. I get the feeling he is really right now losing all those opportunities or just not able to find a way to get on through. He's close. He's extremely close every corner, but the thing is he can't find that final 5% to be able to get past, and that is the tricky nature of the Hockenheimring circuit, of course, in any class, but also in the Porsche Cup class, for the simple reason you can be very close to another driver, but those overtaking opportunities, they come as a premium, and you've got to make them count. Well, as he gets a strong run there through Nord Curve, you can see immediately Newman reacting by going defensive. Meanwhile, Fritsch, they're looking up the inside, and when Newman could not find it, Fritsch will find it as the Austrian goes up the inside. Meanwhile, Newman, they're still side by side with Hammer as they make their way out of 2, 3, 4, and as they head onto the straight again, Hammer has to tuck back in. He's just not got enough of a run. Now, keep in mind as well, we're not even halfway through this race yet, so for a number of drives, with the amount of battling and pushing they're doing, could they be taking the front tyres apart quite early on, and also those rear tyres as they make their way down to the brakes? We're hearing it's a retirement for what is it, Nathan Foster, but meanwhile, we can see it there, Joe Newman up the inside of Ash England, and this time it's going to be a drag race up towards Mercedes corner, and it's going to be Newman on the inside into turn 7, England on the outside, and Newman gets ahead as they head on through the right and in towards the heavy braking zone here for the left. But as they come on through now, Newman is clear of England. It will be Philipp Hammer to try and pick his way on through. And look at this behind as well. We haven't really talked about him. Samuel Sprower's caught up to this group. He's been catching at quite a rate of knots. In fact, he's been taking a whole second out of them, lap after lap, given the amount of fighting and how much they've been tripping over one another. And right now, the New Zealander in this mix as well, albeit with a couple of wounds on the front of the car by the looks of things, on the front left bumper from what is his perspective as a driver, front right from our cameraman's perspective, but as he makes his way through the left-hander there. Well, we're hearing that Matt Maddox has been involved in a bit of an incident a bit further back. We will take a quick look at Matt Maddox there. He's brought it back together. I think it may have been a spin at turn at number 8. In fact, we can take a look. Where's he headed into turn number 7, running quite well as well, Maddox, to be fair, before this, and we're under brake. Oh, goodness me, he's going to make contact with the test.The racing car, and Maddox from BDM Racing chucking the car aside to avoid the contact. But meanwhile, we return to live pictures, and at the front of the field, it's all started to run with Ryan Walker there, holding off Emil Cummins and Nathan Scott. But the bigger thing here is that Cummins has found his way ahead of Scott in the run down towards turn number 2, and now Nathan Scott's trying to come on back as they make the way in the long charge up towards the Spitzkehrer hairpin. Behind is Tim Darracott there, he's win 4 attempts, and you can see on the left of the pitch now Emil Koopman's trying to hold position, but meanwhile Nathan Scott out dragging his rival, but Koopman's out braking his rival. There's space on the inside and Walker doesn't see it coming. They come into contact, it's 4 of them in together, and Darracott parks up and Nathan Scott avoids it. Oh, he goes round the outside, and oh my goodness, Nathan Scott there, well, he decided to play it safe, and safety was the word of the day. As they made the way to turn number 7, well, now everybody's been pushed backwards, and Nathan Scott has just been given a 3-second free pass with regards to the lead in this race. We've still got 14 minutes to go. I suspect there's still going to be a battle for the win come the end of it, given the relative pace. But for now, Nathan Scott, as he makes his way underneath our cameraman's position, you can definitely see how much that's benefited him. But now we have got a top 10 all crammed together with P2 through to P10, separated by 2 seconds as they make their way into the stadium. And you can see Darracott as well trying to make the break, as that was definitely a moment, well, it's definitely one of the moments of the season there. Not always for the right reasons, to be fair. We never want to see our drivers making contact, but the way it's shaking on the field, and Nathan Scott just to simply steer clear of all the trouble. And Lee Holmes loses the rear, coming through 16. It's disaster for the test.The Racing Team Purple driver. He starts to get it turned, he's got plenty of space to go with, but meanwhile, we see Marcel Fritsch in P4 now. With everything that's happened, he's still got Newman behind, and Hammer is still stuck behind Joe Newman. He takes another look, but immediately Newman covers him off. It's like a sixth sense between these two. As soon as Hammer even thinks about making the move, Newman is there for iRacing, and he prevents it from happening. And as they make the way through 4 and up towards 6 they go, well, definitely now it is looking as though Newman is here to stay in terms of that P5 position. He is not giving up whatsoever as they head up towards turn number 6. Further back, they can see Samuel Sproul trying to pick his way up past Ash England in the battle for overall position. But meanwhile, Newman now at the inside of Fritsch. They come on through. Well, this time, hopefully nobody goes round. And do they all make it through the corner safely? But as they make the way on out a little bit further back, we've got Alistair Hatch and Craig Shield battling for P2 here in the silver class. P11 battle it is between the two test.The Racing Team Cyan drivers. And well, to differentiate the two, I believe that's Shield on the right of the picture, Hatch on the inside. behind. Shill goes to the cut back here, but as they both come out the corner, it's going to be another equilibrium drag race here as they make the way out towards turn 8. They're both absolutely equal, but Shill seems to be just falling ahead a little bit at the moment in terms of getting his nose into turn number 8 onto the brakes there, and Hatcher has to give it up for the time being. But meanwhile, speaking of never giving up, we do look to Ryan Walker here, who after everything that's happened right now, trying to run away. He's made a break of 1 second over Joe Newman. It does look as though Joe Newman, with that pass being made on Marcel Fritsch at turn number 6 and completing it in the run to 7-8, Walker's been given enough of a buffer to run away with. But speaking of buffers here, we said he had a 3-second advantage. Well, it's already down to 1.2 seconds. It was a 44.448 for Nathan Scott that last lap. For Tim Darracott, meanwhile, it was a 40.119. Darracott taking a whole 1.3 seconds out of the race leader, and Nathan Scott definitely not on the pace of Darracott at this point. I think that battle will shortly be coming, but to be fair, on his debut, Nathan Scott right now definitely showing why he is a force to be reckoned with in the gold class here. He may not have outright pace, but he has consistency and the race smarts to steer clear of the danger and pick up the places when others drop them. But Darracott now with a huge opportunity. You could say it's a golden chance to take the win in the feature here as he makes his way down towards turn number 6 with the gap he's got. It is 2.5 seconds to Ryan Walker, and that is enough to give him an opportunity to battle for position, get it done, and run away if he can. But as they make the way out to turn number 6 behind Marcel Fritsch ahead of his teammate there, and Hammer still stuck behind this group as they head on towards the Mercedes corner. But as they head through the right-hand return number 7, Emil Koeman's at the back of this group, also watching on it with Lee Holmes now 9 seconds off, but he is gradually gaining his Lee Holmes. He is lapping at the pace of what is Tim Darracott. Well, in the previous lap he was not, but previously in this race he has been, so you would imagine that Lee Holmes will eventually get back into this fight as they make the way on towards the stadium section. As they come through, meanwhile Steve Hughes still trying to pick his way through the order here in terms of picking up places, but he can't at the moment with Alistair Hatcher proving to be resilient. But Hatcher, after battling with Craig Shill for some time, has now fallen off the back of Shill. It does look as though, and I think in fact there was an off-track coming from turns 2, 3 and 4 we're hearing on our system, and as a result Hughes now really having to try and put the pressure on here to gain another place. He's only 2 places away from starting to see gold dries ahead of him, albeit he's not got long left. Meanwhile, coming out the final corner to go into a lap, Tim Darracott takes the lead, and it looks though Nathan Scott there taking a bit of a grass trip as he made his way out to turn number 16, 2 wheels on the grass and getting hooked onto it. Meanwhile, Hammer here really now having to try and find his way past Fritsch. He's going made to go to the outside behind, but as they make the way onto the brakes, going on through turn number 2, he goes all the way around. Fritsch gives him the space on the outside, and Hammer says he'll take it immediately and does so as he grabs it with both hands. It is now up to P5 for WS Racing eSports. The teammates swap places, and now Hammer, I think, maybe unleashed a little bit to go chasing after Joe Newman, but we have seen already just how hard Joe Newman can work to keep Hammer at bay. As meanwhile Emil Koeman's here trying to go up the inside of Asher England in the run to turn number 6, trying to gain the overall position here on the silver leader, who has eventually been passed by the majority of the gold pack he was keeping in mind for so long. But as they make the way out to turn number 6, England not fighting that too hard, and you can understand why. He's had his fun with this one, and now I think he's going to settle down and just take the win and make it 2 out of 2. As they come through turn number 7 into 8, we've still got time to go, still 9 minutes plus the final lap remaining, and meanwhile Tim Darracott, your leader, comfortably leading. And how exactly did that occur in terms of the pass, I hear you ask? Well, here is the move. Who's in the run out the final corner. As they came out, we can see Nathan Scott there goes a bit deep on corner exit, some understeer creeping in, and he just tacked to the grass, and the car got dragged along with him as he made his way onto the tarmac again, and I think feeling a bit sore there with regards to losing the position. But still, Nathan Scott there with him, and Will Scott can still bring on home a podium, albeit it's going to become tough as the race goes on, and I think Nathan Scott's tyres now are starting to feel the pain and punishment of the racing early as he makes his way out at 16. He's got an advantage of 1.3 seconds over Ryan Walker, we see here just behind, but Walker is inching closer, and on that last lap he did take all 4 attempts out. As meanwhile Newman and Hammer goes around the outside. He's had enough, Hammer, and he says, right, if I can't do it on the inside into 2, I'll do it on the outside of 1, and it's an absolutely daring move that you never normally see it, but Hammer goes through. He's still on the outside of 2, but this will give him all the run he needs going into 3-4. He'll have the inside line. I think this is what the doctor orders. They make the way up towards turn number 6. McCure to pass in Joe Newman. It just goes somewhere where nobody expects it, and turn 1 on the outside was precisely the point. But the problem is, as they now head down towards turn number 6, Joe Newman running a bit less rear wing, and in that tow has gained enough speed to recontest the position and goes on the counter-attack up the inside. Does he make the braking point? He does, and a Hammer is made to go back behind again. But as they drag race the way out, it's a run up towards turn number 8. We ride on board here with Hammer as he makes his way into turn 8, has to settle back in for a brief moment. Looks down the left, is there any space? There's plenty of space, but he's not close enough to utilise it. And as they carve their way into the apex of turn number 8, and again Hammer in a very familiar situation, which is he just cannot seem to scratch the itch that is passing Joe Newman. Now as they made their way up towards turn number 11, well, Hammer we saw daring to go around the outside of turn 1, and he made it work, to be fair, for the most part, but it was the counter-attack into turn number 6 which Newman made work as they come through the stadium. Now so close as Newman goes a little bit deep, not really an opportunity into turns 13 and 14, but what this will mean now is it does look as though Hammer is looking for those places where Newman's just never going to see it coming, such as turn number 12. Can he get a run? Can he get a run through 15, 16? Well, he gets a good run off the corner, but meanwhile we have got to drive it off. It's Nathan Scott who they've just passed, and what's happened to Nathan Scott, I hear you ask? Well, he's made his way through. In fact, he was not off on the left hand side, as we see going slow. There's Marcel Fritsch, both drivers there involved in individual incidents by the looks of things. We'll take a look back very shortly, but meanwhile we look back to the battle for P. What is now P3 effectively, as we've had 2 drivers drop out of the top 5, and now Philipp Hammer is fighting for a podium position, but Joe Newman is also digging in here, and it becomes ever more important. I think if this didn't mean a lot to Joe Newman already, it's definitely going to mean a huge amount right now. And on top of that, with Ryan Walker only 2 tenths ahead of them in P2, as Newman swings the inside there, and Hammer follows him before coming back to the outside. Newman up the inside, Walker being made contact with there, and I think Newman coming a bit hot, and as a result Walker's been pushed clear as they make the way out of 6 and up towards 7. I don't think Walker's going to be too pleased about that, and Sproul is now at the inside of Walker in the battle for his P4 as they make the way into 8, but he's covered off there as Walker immediately goes on the defensive, but Sproul looks at the inside. They both look up at the braking, but they just make the corner together. My goodness, I thought it was going to be tears, but instead it's trying and trusting heroics as they make the way out of 11 up towards 12, as they come through the right hand, and we get 1 quarter ahead of ourselves. These drivers absolutely not stopping for anyone, but as Sproul goes a bit deep, it's Koopmans who goes up the inside. Further back, meanwhile, Marcel Fritsch up the inside here of Scott, and Nathan Scott right now trying to hold outside to inside. Fritsch loses the rear of the car. I think there was a bit of door contact there between the two of them. Lee Holmes comes on through, and it is really upping in the ante right now, and I know I keep saying it, but every lap they turn, it just gets ever more intense. And whilst this is all gold class racing, the Silvers, there's not too much happening at the moment. You have to excuse us, ladies and gentlemen, as they make the way on through here. Nathan Scott into the pit lane. The damage has been done, and it's a car that cannot carry on. I think he's been called in. It may be a meatball flag, but meanwhile Ryan Walker, as we look back up to the P4 driver, trying to hold off Emil Koopmans after being given the elbow out at turn number 6 from our camera's perspective earlier on, and as they make the way out to turn at number 2 and up towards 6 day raw, well, Ryan Walker right now definitely having to dig in for P4 rather than P2, which is what I think he would have wanted. But meanwhile, many of you will be asking what exactly happened to Nathan Scott with regards to that major moment only moments ago. Well, we'll find out very shortly, given the fact as our drivers make the way down onto the brakes here. Walker defending at the moment, and as they head up through the right-hander of turn number 6, holding it clear, but still plenty more to come, it would seem, between the drivers as they make the way to the next corner, and we do get a quick replay of what happened to Nathan Scott. Well, this was in the run out to turn 15 and 16. P2 at the time comes through the corner, destabilised by the curb. The rear kicks out, and in the end he tries to control it with a bit of power, but the car swings. And then what happened to Marcel Fritsch? Well, Fritsch in a separate instant went to the grass. Oversteer kicked in as he tried to power through it and had a whack to the wall as well. And the two of them then soldiered on, both in wounded cars. But that's exactly how it played on out. And meanwhile, after that, of course, what about the battle we saw between Ryan Walker and Nathan Scott? Well, as they made the way on around, Ryan Walker took the position, made his way up into P2, and then a little bit later, Walker being passed the full position in return, as we do look to how that played out versus Ryan Walker. And as they made the way on through the course, in fact, we won't quite be able to get the move. In fact, we do get the replay now. This was a bit later on, and Joe Newman there up the inside and hot on the brakes. And you can see that, in fact, there was a bit of contact in the second phase of the corner. Walker saw it coming. Joe Newman coming in as hot as a missile, and we're getting it done there. But Philipp Hammer in return getting the place off of him as they made the way onto the next corner. As we return to the live pictures now and look a little bit further up, we see Ryan Walker here in P4 at the moment, holding on to Emil Koopmans. Meanwhile, behind them, Samuel Sprout also in the medley as they make their way down towards turn number 6 once again with 2 minutes to go. But as we hear that Nathan Scott unfortunately has had to head back to the pits due to damage on the car. Ryan Walker defend on the inside here. Koopmans trying to go all the way round, and now this is where the tyre wear, the brake wear, oh goodness me, it all goes wrong for Walker as the car juts round there, and Ryan Walker's just not having any luck at turn number 6. It seems like that's the one corner that's destined to frustrate him this late in the race. He drops down to P7 here, he drops by Ash England, so it's P6 in gold class, P7 overall, but Ryan Walker's race has gone from good to bad to nightmare right towards the end, albeit it's not too bad. He's not outside the gold top 10. But definitely right now, I think feeling the frustration of what has been a successful race, absolutely turned upside down. But meanwhile, speaking of turning his day upside down, Tim Darracott, who's been leading this race for the final 10 minutes, look who's caught up behind him here, and they've got one more lap to go. And now Tim Darracott has probably got the hardest change of the season. It's a tap on the rear of the car, and he's into the pits, and Darracott there, surely not for a drive-through, but it's a whack to the wall for Tim Darracott. It's all gone wrong, it's all unfolded, and Philipp Hammer comes on through to take the final lap and the lead of this race. But I get the feeling that was a drive-through penalty for Tim Darracott, and in return with that whack to the wall, his race will be heavily compromised right at the very end on that final lap. It's a disaster for Darracott, but meanwhile for Samuel Sprout, it's a battle with Ash England. They make their way down. Indeed, Darracott's just leaving the pit lane very shortly as I look at my content booth window, and we can see it there on the pit exit status with regards to time in tower. But Sprout, they're still behind Ash England, and really now Philipp Hammer has been released to lead the race to the very end here. We may still have a little bit of late drama here in terms of class position as Lee Holmes battling with Ryan Walker, and Will Walker now falling backwards a little bit further here unless he can find a way to keep the 88 Tech Racing Team Purple driver behind him. The Satellite Racing driver will undoubtedly try to do it, but Holmes gets ahead in the drag race there, and I think Holmes has just got too much speed as they break their way into turn number 6. He makes sure he's got the inside line covered. He stops the car on apex to make sure there's no potential cutback from Walker, and he gets the move done there for P5 in the gold class, P6 overall on circuit. As meanwhile we look to Steve Hughes here, who continues to find himself sandwiched in amongst the silvers and in between Alistair Hatcher and Wes Glenn Humberstone. As meanwhile we've got Lee Holmes here, and I believe Ryan Walker's just had an absolute moment at turn number 8, outbraking himself. We can see the skid marks there where the car locked up, and he's let Marcel Fritsch through. But as he comes on through, meanwhile we look to Philipp Hammer here, and well, what a different race it's been in the feature. Frustrated for so long for the opening 20 minutes, but in the end the cork was cleared from the bottle and the place is poured on through, and in the end he comes to a line, the checker flag waves, and it's 2 out of 2 for Philipp Hammer from UKSimRacing eSports ahead of Joe Newman as he holds off Emil Koopmans to the line to complete the golden overall podium. Samuel Sparrow P4 there ahead of Ash England, your silver winner, once again making it 2 out of 2. Lee Holmes will come through P6 overall to complete the gold top 5 ahead of Marcel Fritsch P7 there, Ryan Walker just behind him, and then Tim Darracott into the pits. He will finish P9 as we're to understand it, as you see him there briefly, and then Craig Shield coming through second place in the silver class, P10 overall ahead of teammate Alistair Hatcher there to make it 88 Tech Racing Team Zone double podium, P11, P3 in the silver class. It'll then be Glenn Humberstone who comes through to take P12. They're not quite enough for the podium stay in the silver class, but he'll still be happy as he makes his way to the line. And then we will shortly have James Kerstop coming through, as we've had Steve Hughes already come into the pit lane, P14. And James Kerstop will come through to make it. In fact, he'll be P13, we should say, as we had Steve Hughes in P14. But Kerstop comes on through at the privateer, and he'll take P5 in the silver class, not to be his day in the feature. And then Matt Maddox will be the last of our finishers on the lead lap as he rolls the car through turns 15 and 16. It's been a difficult race for the BDM Racing driver, but one thing has stayed true, he's kept in it to win it all the way to the end. And as he makes way out the final corner here, he will complete your finishers of this race, because we've also had multiple retirements. Maddox crosses the line there, and will the retirements include Steve Hughes at P15, Nathan Scott P16, Shane Piggott P17, and Nathan Foster P18, Roxanne Marshall P19, and Ross McFowle P20. But as we see here, Shield and Hatcher line up together, and I think these two right now, great teammates, but at the same time as well, a little bit of a rivalry forming between the two of them, as they found themselves being separated by Steve Hughes for a bit of time and really having to fight hard with each other over the course of the race. Well, they absolutely loved it. They're certain about that, and as they gradually make their way around there, everyone else in the pit lane, it's now time for us to take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. Well, after 30 minutes of racing in the feature of the Hockenheimring in round 8 of the UKSimRacing at Porsche Cup Season 5, it was Philipp Hammer in the end who took another win, making it 2 out of 2 today and 4 in a row since he joined the series as a main cause last week, and he took the win by 5.2 seconds. An absolutely eventful, a roller coaster ride of a race for everybody. I think a roller coaster ride of emotions for Hammer, who at one point frustrated by Joe Newman, but find his way past the SimRacing driver in the end to take the win for WS eSports. Speaking of Joe Newman, P2 there for SimRacing, and a great drive ahead of Emil Koopman's P3 for Apex Missers. That's your overall and your gold podium. And then Samuel K-Sproul P4 for Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, just holding off Ash England at the end. P5 overall, but more importantly for him, his championship campaign is right back on track with a double win in the silver class there for Willesee Racing. P6, Lee Holmes for test.The Racing Team Purple. A difficult start to his race, undermining what could have been in the feature, but still digging in to bring home P5 in the gold class. P6 overall, ahead of Marcel, Fritsch and Ryan Walker. And Ryan Walker, perhaps the driver you've really got to feel for most towards the end of the race after it was going so well for so long, being knocked down the standings very quickly and aggressively in the final 5 minutes. Craig Shield there, P9, just behind the Satellite Racing driver, but bringing on home P2 in the silver class for test.The Racing Team Cyan, ahead of his teammate of Alistair Hatch, who completes our overall top 10, and with it the silver podium. Glenn Humberstone there, best of the rest, P11 for test.The Racing Team Purple, ahead of James Kerstott, the privateer, and then Effect Esports' team at Darracott, who's actually classified P13 come the finish. So we have had a bit of a shake-up of the standings, given some drivers decided to finish the race in the pit lane, ahead of Matt Maddox, Steve Hughes, Nathan Scott, Nathan Foster, and Shane Piggott. And as we come to our final 2 drivers, of course, we can see that with the retirements, Roxanne Marshall P19 and Ross McFowle P20. And our retirees from the race were Nathan Foster, Shane Piggott, Roxanne Marshall, and Ross McFowle. We had 20 starters and we ended with 16 finishers, albeit Nathan Scott 2 laps down. But definitely a thriller of a feature, and it just goes to show you that anyone, it can all go further and further and up the ante, and right at the end it definitely did explode onto our screens. But fantastic racing, and well, now you know what time it is. It's time for us to get ready for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. We'll be back in approximately 5 to 10 minutes for those interviews, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for our post-round interviews, and today we have two volunteers. They're both in the silver class. We're going to be hearing firstly from the 88 Racing team sign driver, Craig Schill, who had a brilliant set of battles in both the sprint and the feature, and particularly enjoyed battling with his teammates in both races. And then we'll be hearing from our double winner in the silver class today of Ashley England, or Ash England as he's also known, in the number 34 car, and hearing his thoughts of turning around what looked to be a little bit of a wobble in his championship campaign last time out in France, but definitely making it count here today in Germany. But as we do get ready to bring Craig Schill in to the interview room, and in fact he will have to come to us, and the fact that we're not quite able to drag him into our room on Discord, the voice over the internet protocol service we use, if we do ask him to join us now, he should be with us very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely a set of races to reflect on and a great haul of points this championship campaign. But he'll be interested to hear that dynamic in amongst himself and also his teammates at 88 Tech. They seem to be battling one another quite hard all the way through the racing. And as we do wait for him to join us at the moment, it does seem there's a little bit delay there, but not too long, ladies and gentlemen. It did look very difficult out there for all of our drivers from start to finish, whether you're at the front of the field or all the way at the back of the field. It must be said that our drivers are really having to push hard, but it does look as though there's a little bit of delay at the moment in having Craig Schill join us in the interview. But as he does join us now, as soon as I say that, it seems to be a way of things. Craig, fantastic racing for yourself start to finish today, and really enjoying it in the silver class by looks of things. A P5 in the sprint and a P2 in the feature. You must be absolutely happy, and also getting one up on your teammates, particularly in the feature race.
That was a lot of fun, I'm not going to lie. And in race one, when Ali just left he left a barn-sized door open, I was just like, I'm having that spot. Sorry.
Oh, indeed. Definitely making the most of the room and enjoying a car at what is a very tricky track as well. And we'll just before we come on to qualifying and also your races, just take us through your thoughts of racing the Porsche Cup car around the Hockenheimring circuit.
I'm new to this car. This is like the first proper league that I've raced the car in the first proper season. I've truly focused on it, and I am finding it a challenge because it's got no assistance and no ABS, none of that stuff. So you've all got to, it's your responsibility kind of thing. And I can be a bit heavy-footed, which means the back end just likes going round and round and round in circles. But Hockenheim I struggle with, but I did right tonight.
Well, I should definitely say so. And start off with your qualifying session. It looked quite comfortable and composed out there on the qualifying field. Of course, having an isolated circuit, meaning that you don't have to worry about anybody else but your own time. How would you gauge your qualifying session? Because it did look as though it took quite a bit of time to get that tyre and brake temperature up.
It was just, for some reason, I was clipping corners, and just every lap I tried to do, I was spinning the car. And before I knew it, there was no time to actually set a decent lap. I've never been great at qualifying. I don't know what it is. I just can never seem to get into a rhythm really quickly. Whereas with the races, after 2 or 3 laps, I can tend to get into a rhythm. But for some reason, qualifying is not my friend.
Well, indeed, qualifying not your friend, and having to start from P19 on the grid, joined by fellow class driver Ross McFowle, the privateer, but starting off strong and making your way up through the field quite rapidly in the sprint, but then a couple of instants started to slow your progress.
Yeah, it was... I try and stay out of trouble on the first couple of laps, just to basically get the brakes up and get the tyres up and see what's going to happen. I've raced with people that go straight off the line, straight into turn 1 like they're going to win the race. I knew I had pace, so it was basically, let's take it easy, let's settle in, and then let's just see what can happen. And yeah, like I said, I gained a few places because people fell off, and I gained a few because I got into a rhythm, and then next thing I know, I had 2 88 Tech cars in front of me, and the team chat was going nuts, like, don't hit me, don't hit me.
Oh, indeed, and it was a thriller of a run all the way down, and indeed that free wide run into the Spitzakera hairpin at turn number 6. And of course, overtaking around here is so tricky, given the fact the second half of the lap is very tight and technical. You've really got to get it done by the turn 6 hairpin, haven't you?
Yeah. For some reason, I was really strong through there, and Ali was he was struggling with it. Every lap, he was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've tried everything. And so I knew I could catch. I was taking like half a second out of him every lap in the feature race. So I was catching him, and then I was like, I got a good run out of turn 3, and I was like, right, I'm going to go for it now. And then he kind of like he left the door open again, and I was like, do I do the same thing twice? And then he shut it, and I was like, right, I'm going to have you on the inside, and I messed it up a little bit, but I knew I still had enough time to slow the car down and get the cut back, and that's what I went for. And then it was just a drag race down to the next corner.
Indeed, and a classic way to make the move, and a classic corner, and also in a classic piece of machinery. And well, speaking of your feature race, of course, with the fact you made a bit of ground in the sprint, starting right in the middle of the field in what was the run to turn at number 1, and it definitely looked as though it was very hectic then, having to take some very quick emergency action coming out of turns 2, 3 and 4 on the first lap, with one car in front going sideways across the front of you.
Yeah, that was interesting, considering it was a team boss that was doing it. But luckily I seen him go through the corner, and I saw the back end get a little bit squirrely, and then obviously he was like, no, and that's with us lot in 88 tech, the second one of us in team chat starts going no, we know something's going wrong. And I just saw him, and so I just anchored the brakes on and just tried to miss him, and luckily I did. And then that was it. Once I was past that little bit of chaos, I was away.
Oh, indeed, and running away with things and making further ground and fighting your way upwards the podium, and along the way having to make moves on, of course, James Kersop, who was looking fast out there. But just take us through, of course, in that chase, 30 minutes, how was the tyre management today? Did you have to do a lot of tyre conservation?
Be honest with you, I don't know how to. I just, from the second it goes green, I'll do the first 2 laps and like keep myself, the car and everything race worthy, and then I just go for it. There's either on or off with me. It's like, if the tyres go off, then it's my own fault. But I find with the car that I seem to be able to manage them just without thinking about it. I just drive my race. I'm not quick enough to burn them up too much. So yeah, it was just take it bit by bit.
Well, indeed, and playing it smart, playing it sensible, and coming through the field to finish P2 and P9 overall in the end is no mean feat at the Hockenheimring. And looking ahead now to the midpoint of the season, next time out for rounds 9 and 10, we head to Norway for the Rudskogen Motor Centre circuit. How are you feeling about the run through the local Norwegian countryside?
It's going to take some practice, because I've literally done about 10 laps around there the other night. That's the first time I've driven it in any car. So that will be a couple of long nights after work, getting on here and putting the laps in and getting in the officials and doing the officials, because I know that they're there this week. I think and just head down, practice, tweak the setup a little bit so it suits my driving style, and then it'll be a case of hopefully get a good start and repeat what I did this time, and hopefully get top step. That's my aim.
Well, indeed, we've had multiple winners in the silver class this season. It was the rise of Roxanne Marshall in the rounds in Magny-Cours, and today it's been a return for Ash England. But could we potentially see you not just up there once, but twice next time?
I'd like to think so. I've got as far as step number 2, so I don't see why I can't get up there. I'm getting better in the car every time I drive it and getting more settled in it, and I would have liked to be able to catch Ash, but he was just too far in front of me. I was hoping that he was going to get in a gold fight and suddenly fall off, but unfortunately my prayers weren't answered today.
Well, indeed, it's unfortunate, but pushing all the way. And we do look forward to seeing how you get on in Norway. But just before we do let you go, Craig, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
I'm going to give a thanks to the team and a shout out to the team, because we all have an absolutely great crack when we're doing this. It's all a hobby for us, but we all have a good laugh when we do it. I'm gonna thank the girlfriend, because basically I turn around and say Thursday night she ain't gonna see me because I'm racing, and she's just like, yeah, no worries. So I'll give a big thanks to her. She's very understanding. and anyone else that knows me that's watching.
Well, I'm sure your girlfriend will really appreciate as well the sacrifices being made, but it's always a pleasure to see you and the ATEC team tearing up the tarmac on screen. But as we conclude our interview with yourself, Craig, it's been a pleasure as always. Congratulations on your double top 5 today, including a second place in the feature, and we look forward to seeing if you can make that dream of the top step come true at Rudskogen in a week's time.
Thank you very much.
All the best. So hearing there from Craig Schill, our silver driver with a huge amount of enthusiasm. It definitely sounds like he's got a bit of a heart of gold when it comes to enjoying racing with the ATEC team, given the fact a good run of results here, also battling, and we can see there in the pictures right now the 3 wide moment as they chase their way down to the braking zone there, side by side with the number, what was the 27 car, and as he made his way out the corner, they're battling with Matt Maddox and Shane Bigger, making it count there, picking up 2 places for the price of 1, and definitely right now, Craig fighting on through and wanting to pick up that maiden win this season. But will it come to him? We'll have to wait and see in a week's time. Coming from our first interview of the day, we now come to our second interviewee, and it is none other than Ashley England, our silver double winner today. And well, what a performance from the Willesee Racing driver. Never looking back, only looking forward. And well, as we do get ready for him to join us in the interview room, it's going to be interesting to hear his perspective, particularly on the feature race, where he seemed to be absolutely crowded around by the gold drivers, but never having to hesitate or worry about pulling the moves from corner to corner. But as we do just wait for Ash England to join us in the interview room, also it'll be interesting to hear his perspective on turning around that state of mind from magnified, where it all went wrong last time out, and now it's all going so very right once again. His championship campaign is back on form, and well, also what lies in wait in Norway, of course. Is he looking forward to that circuit, or is it one of those circuits where he may not be? But as he joins me now, Ashley, a fantastic run of performances today. Double win once again. You're back on top form after a difficult time last time out in France. You must feel on top of the world once more.
Yeah, definitely. Had a bit of a bad round last time out. Didn't really enjoy the track that much. But yeah, definitely made a few mistakes. And then tonight I just... no mistakes at all. Kept it all on track. Kept everything in the right direction, and yeah, managed to pick up 2 wins and looked like I had a lot of pace.
Well, speaking of that pace, we saw it straight away in qualifying with an absolute flyer of a pole lap for the silver class. It put you P7 on the grid overall and 4 places clear of second place silver driver in P11 of Shane Piggott. The gap in the end, as we recall the statistics, was almost 8 tenths. Just take us through qualifying. Was it the perfect lap? Was there more out there? And how did you find that lap?
To be honest, there was a little bit of time still out there. I think I could have found a couple of attempts, but I don't think it would have actually improved my position. But yeah, there was a little bit of time out there. But yeah, I seemed to get out there, and the car seemed to be really good, and I felt comfortable straight away. And like you say, got the lap in, and yeah, put me P7 overall. I was quite happy.
Well, being happy with your qualifying lap and then going into the sprint. Now, of course, normally we've seen you mixing it up at the top of the silvers and trying to hold on to lead position. But this time, going into turns 1 and 2, 2 very tight corners at the Hockenheimring, you end up having to battle with a number of gold drivers around you, and not just any gold drivers, but the likes of Satellite Racing's Ryan Walker, Nathan Scott from SimRacing, and also Samuel Case Brown from Blackout Motorsport New Zealand. How did you approach that in terms of your mental state? Were you thinking, right, I've got to battle for these positions, or just make sure I don't lose to any silver drivers who are a long way back?
Well, obviously I wanted to get the best overall position I could. But yeah, like you say, I got going. In the sprint race I was with Ryan, just following Ryan along. Ryan seemed to have good pace. And when I was P9, I thought, right, I want to try and get into P8 to try and get the reverse grid pole, or at least maybe get 7th and get to the front row. But then a few had an incident and put me up to P7 anyway, so I thought, right, I'll settle here behind these 2 and make it to the finish, and then set me up for a good position for the feature race. But yeah, I didn't have the greatest start in the sprint. Lost a couple of positions, but yeah, like I say, got them back.
Well, indeed, we saw a slow start in the sprint from yourself, but very quickly fighting your way back to the front. And interested to hear your thoughts there with regards to setting your stake in the ground at that P7 position and deciding to hold there. Of course, it gave you second place on the reverse grid for the feature. And well, when you're up the front in the feature race, 30 minutes, you've got all the gold drivers bar one behind you. And we saw very early on, you're not just there by reverse grid, you're there to beat them. And you were digging in deep with regards to battling with them.
Yeah, definitely. I was, like I say, I wanted to get the best overall when I could overall. Obviously, I did end up down in P10 at one point, but I was just picking my battles. I thought, right, I've got a comfortable margin over second place here in the silver class, and I thought, right, I just need to keep my head, keep everything pointing in the right direction, and I should be fine. And then, yeah, a couple of the drivers had a couple of incidents, and then I ended up back in 7th, and then I ended up in 6th, and then, like I say, I ended up in P5 at the end. But yeah, I was trying to keep him behind at points. I had a little shaky moment in turn 1. I took a bit too much curb and nearly lost the rear. But yeah, I held it all together, and like I say, just picked my battles with who I thought I could, and I thought I better not be taking myself out of the race whilst racing the gold drivers when they're in a completely different race in terms of obviously classes. So yeah, I just thought keep my head and not do anything stupid, and I should be fine. And then yeah, ended up in P5, which was really good.
Indeed, a great performance and very smart driving from yourself. And just talking a little bit about driving around here, of course, in the Porsche Cup car, what there been the Porsche Centre experience right in the middle of the circuit. What are your thoughts on the Hockenheimring circuit now that you've done the best part of what is 40 minutes of racing around here? Is it comfortable for the Porsche, or has it been a tricky one?
It is a really tricky track, to be honest. I haven't really done much around here. I've done little bits here and there, but recently not done much. So when I started doing a bit of practice the other day, I was struggling a bit. I didn't really know what to do in regards to lines and stuff like that. But it seems like you got to take a lot of curbs around here. You got to use them where you can, and obviously where it ain't going to chuck you off the track. But yeah, definitely using all the track that's available was the best thing to do, in my opinion. Yeah, there's a couple of the places where it's easy to lock up, and that hairpin especially. But yeah, like I say, I just managed to keep it all together. I'm really happy with the result. But like you say, it is a hard track. It is really hard. I just think you need to be calm and collective, and you should be fine. But yeah, I did really enjoy it, to be honest. Although it's a hard track, I did really enjoy it.
Well, a difficult track, but one you've enjoyed, and we head to perhaps an even trickier and more difficult track next week in Norway, known as Rudskogen Motorcenter. Your thoughts on the circuit before you venture over there?
Well, I haven't driven it as of yet. I've seen it on the officials, so I'm going to hopefully do a couple of them towards the end of the week, each night, hopefully. Get a bit of practice in around there, see what it's like. But yeah, it looks like quite a hard track because it's twisty and turny. It's not got many straights, should I say. So yeah, I think it's going to be a hard track to master, but hopefully I can have another good night like I have this week when we go there. But yeah, like I say, track looks a bit difficult, but we'll see. Hopefully it's not too difficult.
Well, fingers crossed for you with regards to your preparations for next week's pair of rounds. But just before we do let you go, Ashley, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
No, just just thanks to Willesee Racing again, like I said last time, obviously getting me involved in it. And then obviously my teammates couldn't make tonight, but they both congratulated me when I finished. So yeah, just thanks to them, Jack Ward, Cameron Willesee, and Lewis Willesee.
It's great to hear the team spirit in the camp for Willesee Racing and all your teammates tuning in and cheering you on with that. Well, thank you very much for joining us in the interview room, Ashley, and we look forward to seeing how you get on next time out at the Rudskogen Motor Centre circuit.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you.
All the best. So hearing there from our double silver winner today, another name striking high at the very top of the silver podium, Ashley England from Willesee Racing. And well, what an evening it's been, showing the pace from the outset in qualifying and never looking back, but also having to contest with a gold class of drivers all around him who have been really batting hard for position and making sure to fight with them, but being smart, being sensible, and not being given the elbow out in return, and making sure not to lose what looked to be a guaranteed pair of wins from the outset once we got racing on the green flag conditions. But that's the thing, with the momentum being lost last time out in France, he's got the momentum back, and the question is, can he continue that momentum next time out in Norway, or will we see a new name at the top of the silver stands? Of course, Craig Schill looking, as we heard in his first interview, to be trying to bring on home that win, or could we see Roxanne Marshall, any one of the other silver drivers there, given how close the silver class is? And it does seem to be whoever's there on the day who nails it really is the driver who takes that top runner form. Well, definitely a challenge that awaits our silver driver Ashley England, and can he rise to it next time out? We will wait and see. But with that, that concludes our post-round interviews for today. Our two drivers who we've interviewed. We started off, of course, with 88 Tech Racing Team at Science number 82 driver Craig Schill in the silver machine, and that be the silver class machine, of course. And then we've just heard from Ashley England in the silver class as well in the number 34 Willesee Racing machine. But as we look ahead now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the UK sim racing community, then why not check out our official website, which you saw earlier shown on screen, and that web address again at UKSimRacing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you don't want to go to our website, but perhaps you'd like to go to one of our social media platforms, you can always go to our Twitter, twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. You can go to either the website or our Twitter to find out all the latest news and information about upcoming series and broadcasts. But on top of that as well, we'd like to give a big thank you to our affiliates as always, and they are firstly at Swello Meta Sim Racing Coaching, their YouTube address available there. And the reason why you should listen to Swello Ameda Sim Racer as a coach, for the simple reason that he is perhaps one of the best coaches out there when it comes to the world of iRacing. A multi-time champion official iRacing series, particularly the Porsche Cup series in 2021, Swello Ameda has a different approach to coaching. Many coaches will take a look at your laps and be on board with you and say that you need to improve 101 different things. Well, the difference is Swello Ameda will dissect your driving down and tell you the 3 things you need to focus on first and foremost, so that way you can focus on the key information you need to be able to improve your lap time, your consistency, your tyre wear, or anything in between that you're looking to improve upon. And that's why Swello Ameda Sim Racing Coaching is perhaps one of the number 1 coaches out there when it comes to improving your graft and craft in iRacing, and indeed on any sim racing platform. We also have their Race Anywhere, their web address, raceanywhere.co.uk, and Race Anywhere is the provider of curated sim racing equipment aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. We also have Demon Tweaks there, their web address, demon-tweaks.com, who are the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide. So no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions either in the real world or on the simulator. And then last but not least, we do have Amazon. Their web address, amazon.co.uk, and Amazon is the company striving to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, including but not limited to one-click shopping, Amazon Web Services, and of course Amazon Fire TV. But speaking of fire, our drivers will all be fired up because they make the way to Norway for their next 2 rounds in rounds 9 and 10 on the Thursday, 2nd of February 2023. They'll be heading to the Norwegian circuit of Rudskogen Motor Centre. But this is a pivotal point, of course, because we'll be heading into the halfway point of the season. With there being 18 rounds and 9 venues, this will be our 5th venue, and it splits the season into 2. And with the points becoming ever more critical, who will rise to the occasion there and come on home with the big score in the gold and the silver classes? Will it be in the gold class? Philipp Hammer continues to have that unstoppable run of wins, or will he be thwarted in the 2 races there? And in the silver class, will Ashley England be able to make it 2 out of 2 once more, or will we see a new name or another regular on the top step make the way on through and take victory in the Norwegian circuit? The story continues then, but until then, we've been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling. It's Friday tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. The weekend's almost with us as well. And most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.